The views and opinions in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Spectrum.
Okay. All right, we're going to call the meeting to order. Just want to welcome you all to this special board meeting on December 12th, 2022. Let's see here. We are joined by our interim superintendent, Vicki Byer, members of her cabinet. And tonight there's only one thing on our agenda, which is the resolution awarding the sale of $92,605,000 general obligation promissory notes, and we're going to be having a discussion about that. So first, though, we need to do roll call. Kinsey? Smith? Here.
Becker,
Here.
McCoy,
Here.
Leighton and Warren,
Here.
Welch,
Here.
Lyerly,
Here.
Mills.
Here.
Okay, all board members are here tonight, which I just want to note has been the first time in a while that we've all been in the room together, which is really a pleasure. And so next up, Angie, Sarah, we're going to get going here.
Sure. So as Laura mentioned, we are going to walk through the resolution awarding the sale of the referendum notes. So we have Mike Clark with us from Baird Financial. So he'll be walking through the packet that everybody has in front of them.
Good evening, good afternoon, I guess. I'm used to night meetings. So I do appreciate you accommodating this. So again, issuing the full amount from the referendum. There'll be a few additional comments that you probably haven't heard. All the debt issuance we've done with the district. There's a few changes in the environment that are going to create a few different things the district will have to monitor. But again, these are promissory notes, since they are only go out 3 years. Anything under 10 years are notes as opposed to bonds that are over 10 years. The settlement date will be December 27th, 2022. Given the fact that the district levied in the fall and had the two levies, one contingent on the referendum passing or not, there are some IRS federal requirements that we get the debt in place prior to collecting the levy dollars in January, February. So that's kind of the thing, that's kind of the urgency kind of behind getting this in place. Again, as I mentioned, it's a short issue, maturities 23 through 25, and the first two issues of 23, 24 being the larger ones. First interest payment and principal payment will be April 1, 2023, since the district did levy a sizable amount in the fall. For this effort, we'll be paying it down very quickly. It's non-callable, just given the short nature of the issue. It's just not realistic, and it gets you a better rate up front. The district's AA2 was affirmed. We had a very nice conversation with Moody's and kind of foreshadowed some potential things coming down the road. But even taking that into account, they affirmed the AA2. Obviously, the district's strong reserves are a plus. Kind of financial management as a whole obviously challenges the uncertainty of the state funding and enrollment direction. They do look at enrollment.
Can you do just a short explanation of why those ratings matter.
Sure. There are, I'll just focus on Moody's since that's what the district's rating is at. There's different tiers. There's a AAA. I believe there's only 3 AAAs in the state, Madison, Nicolay, and the third one will come to me as I'm talking. And then there's the AA level. And within the AA level, there's three subcategories. AA1 is the highest. AA2 is the next, AA3. And then you get into the single A. And I don't believe there's any districts in the state below the single A. Not every district has a credit rating. But what the credit rating does, gives a third party evaluation of the issuer and the district's ability to, in their eyes, their ability to repay the debt. They look at criteria such as your debt load, which yours is very low, even with this issuance, enrollment trends, budget flexibility, the management of the district, the economic base, employers. Obviously, Green Bay has a very diverse economic base, which is a positive. And then they evaluate those types of things and give you a credit score, in your case, AA2, which then potential investors can rely on as far as comfort. But it is important, especially to be in the AA level, because there are some buyers of bonds who only look for AA. Not everybody. And that broadened when rates were really low. Some people just looking for return, yield, were kind of expanding their scope. But now that we've seen rates increasing, I think you'll see some of those people go back to the more traditional criteria in terms of bonds that they'll. So again, it definitely helps save interest costs the better your credit score.
Thank you.
And so the all-inclusive rate, which takes into account all the costs, you had costs for the bond council as far as the referendum, ballot question, the Moody's rating, disclosure council, our fee, all those things in the rate that we're presenting tonight is 3.41%. And I do want to talk about rates just for a second, because it creates a couple of conditions. The yield curve is a bit inverted right now, meaning the short end is higher than the intermediate or longer end. For example, a 1-year treasury is about 4.7% today. And the 10-year treasury is about 3.6%, I think it is around there today. So that the shorter term instruments, and not that municipal tax exempt debt trade lock and sync with the US treasuries or something like that. But there's an indication that to get, you couldn't go out there and get a 2%, because even somebody, because this has an average life of just under 1 year. So it's kind of equivalent to a 1-year treasury. You couldn't get 2% on a tax exempt issue when somebody can get 4.70 on a 1-year treasury. Even if they pay tax on that interest, with maybe a few exceptions, you're better off buying the treasury. So there is spreads in that type of analysis when people choose to invest or spend their money on some debt. So it's important from that standpoint. That's why I'm heading from here. I'm heading down to Denmark, and they did a $9.5 million issue that went out 20 years. Their rate is about 3.7%. Now it's bank qualified, which is a different category, but it just shows you kind of where the yield curve is, whether it's in treasuries or municipal, that shorter end. We even just, we're doing a 1-year note for Green Bay, and they're about, I think with the cost added, they were about a 3.40. And so it just kind of shows you kind of where it's a little different market than we've seen over the last several issues we've done with the district. The other thing that's going to be created is the district, because of the inverted yield curve, you will earn interest and have the potential to earn some pretty sizable interest. I know that the district has talked with the firm that handles the investments of the proceeds. And, you're looking at the potential of earning, 4.5-ish%. Well, when the federal government and the IRS give you the ability to issue on a tax exempt basis, giving you that benefit of which results in a lower interest cost, they want you to spend the money. And they give you a certain time period to spend the money. You will not spend the money in the appropriate time period. And they compare that there's a calculation to determine your arbitration yield, how much you can earn and get to keep if you don't meet those spend down requirements. And the district's not going to meet the spend down requirements, and which there's a lot of districts in that situation. And because it's such a short issue, your ARB yield was like 2.66%. So that potential almost 2% above it, is something that that may have to go back to the federal government. So I just want to let you know, and we're looking at the different options. There's two options. One is there's the penalty option, which there's certain benchmarks, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, that there's certain expenditure levels you have to meet. It's 10%, 45%, 75%, 100%. If you don't meet those targets, you pay 1.5% on the amount that you missed the target on. So let's say your first 6-month target is $10 million and you spent 5, you pay 1.5 on 5. And the district will tell you, we looked at multiple options up as of late Friday, trying to come up with ways to avoid that. There really isn't, because one, we had to issue the 42. You levied the money. We had to issue at least the 42. Even with the 42, you're not going to meet those. If you only issued the 42, you're not going to meet the spend down requirements on that issue. So it appears that the penalty option might be the best option. Now, there's some things the district can do to kind of maybe shift some expenditures to kind of accelerate that. And I think that'd be something you'll probably be discussing down the road to kind of minimize that penalty. But there really isn't. We looked at breaking it into 2 pieces, but then you miss out on earning of the one piece for a year or so. And they all kind of seem to end up in about the same spot. So just be aware that you will be most likely writing some checks to the federal government, and which could be beneficial to them. And you won't be the only one. There multiple districts. And again, this is the first time probably in almost 20 years where there's actually positive arbitrage, where you're going to earn significant dollars. And it's a concern. I know Allison Buchanan, who serves as the district's bond counsel at Quarles and Brady. She's been at Quarles 16 years. She said this is the first time in her career that she's dealt in an environment that had positive arbitrage. Again, a year ago, you were earning less than 1%, or maybe a year and a half ago, and your ARB yield would have been 3.5% on a 20-year issue, 3.5%, 4% on a 20-year issue. It's a non-factor. So just be aware that that's going to be coming. So when 6 months, which will be the end of June, that calculation will need to be done. There's a likelihood. Now, what you'll do, because the projection of interest income is, you'll use some of that interest income to make that payment. It's not going to reduce the dollars you have for projects, and actually you'll be able to retain some of that interest for additional projects well beyond the 92.6. But so you'll get the 92.605 for projects plus some of the interest. How much, it depends on how quickly or how closely you can match those target dates. So yeah.
So I'm just going to add to that. So to Mike's point, so I think it's really important that we understand that we've got the $92.6 million, right? We're not losing that. So if we I'm just going to throw out a number. If we, over the course of 2 years with that investment, we earn $5 million, we may have to pay out of that $5 million, let's say $1 million because of the arbitrage yield, but we keep 4 million. So I think that's just a really good point to just reiterate.
Oh, James.
Okay, so given your example, we would keep 4 million and that would be used to offset the outbound interests to the purchasers, right? So let me finish. So that seems like an extraordinary example that you provided. Is it nominal, or do you have any kind of data from previous engagements to determine how much of an offset that will provide?
The district has two options with the interest it's able to retain, that it earns and is able to keep. It doesn't write a check and send to Washington, if that is the case, which we think is likely. You can either use it for additional projects and not offset the debt, or you can allocate it to the debt. So the board will have that opportunity to make that decision. So depending on the scope of projects you're looking to address, you can look at the benefit of paying that off. One thing that, and actually, when you look at the financing plan, you'll in 2 years, then you have a big drop. And obviously the district is working towards some different things that may fill in that drop, but that may play into it as well. And you can make that determination at any point during the 3 years of repayment. You don't have to decide, say, okay, we're going to use interest for this. Given the nature of some of your projects, a lot of districts will kind of get the project scope underway, see where things are coming, and then make a determination of or you could split it. You could say, okay, we're going to use half of it for additional projects, half of it for essentially tax relief.
In the past, we've always used, like with the 16-17 referendum, we used that interest for additional projects and for, to cover those projects that may have come in over. So that's, I believe, what the district has always done in the past, is just use that for additional things.
Okay, we're gonna go to Brian, and then probably we should get on with the presentation and maybe. Okay, let's keep going then.
So we do a illustration of the 92.605 million promissory notes. You'll see the two large principal payments, interest payments. And then what happens, we did keep in, and we also have listed the district's non-recurring operating question, and we have a hypothetical. And again, I wanted to remind, because I know we've had conversations in the past, that this structure, the idea behind it was to give the district an opportunity to maybe address future needs, whether it be operational or facility, that we just kind of have is yellow, kind of a hypothetical plug. And you can kind of see what that does to the overall combined levy going forward. It definitely does provide some opportunities, pretty sizable opportunities as it relates to, but again, I know working with the district, we kind of targeted 2020 at one point in terms of potential referendum, and obviously COVID and different things kind of sidetracked things. And you came down to a situation where it was November, your tax rate still fell, but if the referendum hadn't passed, your levy would have fallen tremendously. Not that that's a bad thing, but again, that it's a fairly short window of opportunity to kind of replace the levy in a timely fashion. We just wanted to point that out as well, but it's nice to pay a debt off in 3 years, but from a planning standpoint, 3 years goes by very quickly. So, and then the last several pages are just the district's credit rating. Again, they affirmed it. They didn't really seem to have any concern. Solid reserves, modest leverage, meaning your obligations, whether it be necessarily for employees or for outstanding debt are pretty modest. Declining enrollment is a concern. And then again, in Wisconsin, the uncertainty with the next state budget's going to provide, you don't have a lot of opportunities other than going to referendum to greatly influence your revenues and related expenditures. And there's just other data in terms of which I won't get into, but again, very solid report, and it definitely helped in terms of the sale of the debt. So with that, I'll conclude my comments.
Okay. Angie and Sarah, did you have anything additionally? No, okay.
I mean, I think the only thing, that I'll add is that, of course, we're working closely with Josh Facilities. We have, we have a layout of what the plans, the spending plan. So we'll get as close to those marks as, we'll be strategic in how we come up with that spending plan. So know that we're working very closely with the team on that. We'll keep you updated.
Very good. Okay. Go ahead, Andrew.
Could you tell us a little bit more about why, why 10-year was chosen if 20-year may have ended up with similar rates? And also in the past, we've done more callable to allow us to, take advantage of changes, and also we have a little bit more flexibility to kind of shape where now we just have a fixed slope, where we could have shaped the slope to make sure that we could bring new things in ways that would, we were really been focused on keeping the tax rate level. And to do that, I'm assuming some, flexibility of early payment helps that happen. But here we see a relatively short payment.
Yeah, and that's the key. And what you stated in terms of trying to keep the tax rate level, or actually more closely, a better way to say it is to slow the descent. So given the amount that was being asked, and to achieve the goal of, because the district had a significant drop this year in its tax rate, and it will likely drop next year as well, even though the debt payment is the same, just given your underlying revenue limit decline and the direction of that, so it was more levy focused, and that's how we ended up with a 3-year note. And so and that's why I wanted to highlight, it's a very quick note. So if the district does have plans and want to kind of layer it in as this falls off, the time frame is going to come very quickly. And again, since it's only, as I stated, it's only a 3-year repayment schedule. So to put a call in there, just probably would cost you about 0.25% in interest. And we thought the likelihood of doing so was pretty remote, and just get the best rate available now. So again, if the district wanted a longer period, if the district would have had, to keep that payment somewhat level, you would have been looking at a much larger referendum. And obviously, given what the district's going through as far as a study and looking at its facilities kind of on a broader schedule, this, again, based on just the conversation with the district, this seemed to be kind of a nice fit to kind of stabilize the levy for a couple of years, give you the time to get through that study to kind of then, evaluate what the bigger needs might be.
Okay. Brian.
I just have 2 quick questions with this. When you're speaking of the interest potentially gained, that would need to be spent on capital projects, I assume, and you couldn't go into like operating expenses on that. You're nodding yes, you're shaking your head no, but I think you're both answering the same way.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, no, we're both correct. And she was, yes, I could have, yeah, she was nodding and affirming what you were saying. And I was saying, no, you're right. So no, your only options and interest earned on these dollars are for additional projects or to pay the debt down.
A follow up with that. Well, it's not really a follow up. I'm going to ask a second question. Our credit rating has remained pretty consistent. I'm sorry, not credit rating.
bond rating, thank you, has been pretty consistent for the last 20 years, I assume, correct?
It has. I'm trying to think back when there would have been a last change. There's been no change for at least 15 years. I can't say with absolute certainty that you weren't. Because what happened, it wasn't even necessarily something the district did that, what was the year? I think it was like 2011, 12. The district or the Moody's they kind of recalibrated some of their measurements, and I'd have to go back and look. I don't think the district changed through that, but some districts did just because of how they weighted different variables.
So this has been another indication that previous boards have been very conservative and fiscally responsible with the money that the taxpayers have allocated to us, and Moody's has demonstrated that as well and continue with it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think the district's track record of paying debt off early, refinancing debt, lowering those obligations is definitely played a role in that.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, guys.
And then the board will take action on this tonight,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're going to be reading the motion shortly. So, do you want to read the motion? All right, so the next thing is we're going to read the motion and take a vote.
I move that the resolution awarding the sale of $92,605,000 general obligation promissory note be presented be approved.
I'll second that. Kinsey?
Online voting is now open. All votes have been entered and the motion is carried with all board members voting in favor.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing we have to do is I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have to vote or just say all in favor? All in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Here. This is our work session for December 12th, 2022. We were going to have a part of this be a closed session, but that was canceled. So we're going to move right on to the welcome, which I'd just like to welcome you all for being here tonight. We've got some special guests in the audience. We're also joined by our interim superintendent, Vicki Byer, and members of her cabinet. And we are also joined by 2 members of ICSC. Would you guys like to please introduce yourself?
Laura, we
Sorry.
need a roll call again.
Oh, sorry, guys. Put a pin in that. Let's do the roll call.
Smith,
Here.
Becker,
Here,
McCoy,
Here.
Leighton and Warren. Here. Welch. Here. Lyerly,
Here.
Mills.
Here.
Okay, all board members are in attendance. Would you guys please introduce yourselves?
Hello, my name is Macy Saha. I'm a senior at Preble and I'm the president of Intra-City Student Council.
Hello, my name is Alyssa Wilcott. I'm a senior at East and I'm just a part of this Intra-City Student Council.
Okay, thank you for joining us tonight. The next on the agenda is the public forum. Kinsey, do we have anybody tonight? Is there anybody who was hoping to speak during our public forum? Okay, then we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is under number 4, education, and that will be facilitated by Andrew Becker.
Thank you. The first item is the anti-racism club presentation, and that'll be introduced by Superintendent Vicky Byer.
Thank you, Mr. Becker. And Mr. Lundin, if you could bring your group up. Yes, please. We are joined tonight by the Franklin Anti-Racism Club as a request from board member Brian did this one, right? Yeah. Brian did. So I am going to introduce Principal Greg Lundin, and then he will take over. Microphone, the picture that has the face.
Yeah,
There we go. How is that?
very good.
Check, check. Okay. Thank you all for having us. I am Greg Lundin, the principal of Franklin Middle School. I'm very proud and humbled to be here amongst these amazing people. We have two amazing educators, Mr. Calloway, David Calloway, and Ms. Julie Stranaski, who lead our anti-racist folks group at our student group at Franklin Middle School. And we have some wonderful students, Cooper, Reese, Leonel, Willow, and Tyron here, who are going to present on the work that they have been doing over the past couple of years, actually. This group actually started originally with just adults, and then through the interest and work of Mr. Calloway and Mrs. Chernaski, they thought, hey, why don't we do a student group and see what kind of interests we get? And it was incredible, incredible interest, incredible work by these wonderful students that we have here. And I learn more from them than they probably do from me. So I'll have the educators take it away here. Thank you.
All right. So first of all, thank you for having us here tonight. And so just kind of getting started, we are the Franklin Middle School Anti-Racist Group. We are a group of students who every Wednesday, these students on their lunch, on their own, they meet with us as adults. We as the adults are just there to facilitate. We show up, we kind of push and give them some ideas, but the conversation and the ideas and the work comes from truly the students. So it is truly fun and just an awesome experience. So thank you for having us again, and we'll kind of get started with our presentation.
Okay. This video brings to the front one of our purposes as a group to widen the perspective of others in our community.
Just bear with us. It might take a moment. While we're waiting, I just want to take the opportunity of saying how great it is to see you here tonight. I feel like we should have kids at our board table more often. So, I mean, we have students, you know, you guys, sorry.
I also think it's great to have some younger people at the table as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your kind words. Anyway, so just know that you're very welcome, and we're very, very happy to have you here.
next? Ask yourself why. These are the Black stories we've been shown. A narrow view that limits our understanding. But there's so much more to see. The full picture of Black life. Let's widen the screen so we can widen our view.
We believe that one of the best ways to reach our goals is to learn about cultures that are different than our own. So we try to create lessons for the different Heritage Month celebrations to be shared during IB Leader or our advisory time. These are a couple of examples of presentations we have created. Last year, we were able to go to a leadership seminar with the Milwaukee Bucks. We learned team building and leadership strategies, and we were then able to watch the game.
There you go.
Last year, we were able to get students, parents, teachers, staff, and community members together to visit the Bias Inside Us exhibit at UW-GB. Here are some reflections that we shared afterwards. We would like to thank Miss Ingrid for helping to secure funds for our bus to take us there.
Use of racial slurs, specifically the use of the N-word, was identified as a concern. Conversations and discussions evolved into our groups. The information from our discussions was then put together and brought to the staff for a professional learning opportunity. Mr. Callaway will
Yes. And so what happened, we started this conversation with just the N-word and sometimes it being used in spaces and places in our building and us all knowing time and place and how that's inappropriate. So the conversation started with students and expressing how they feel and talking with one another and how its word's not appropriate and the hurtfulness and understanding the definition of the word and why it's not appropriate. And then it went into a professional development with all of our staff, and it was supposed to only be like a 30-minute professional development. It went 2 hours and they still had to stop us because staff were very passionate and wanted to know, right? what do we do when that word is said? How do we respond? What do we say when an African-American student tells us that you as a white person don't have the right to tell me I can't use that word, right? And so just having that discussion and conversation around it and how we should respond and what should happen next, and a zero tolerance policy to make sure that we make a comfortable environment for everybody. But the powerful part to that conversation was it started amongst students, and then it led into a professional development for our staff. And it was powerful for us to not agree, but understand each other's perspectives and how we as a school are going to face and deal with it when our students use that word, and understanding time and place and why it can't be used in our school setting.
Other accomplishments. Invite community members to come in and participate in our anti-racist group discussions. Create this group and encourage attendance and involvement. We meet every Wednesday during our lunch. Discuss murals, portraits to add to Franklin to reflect the diversity of our students. Monday morning quote of the week in the announcements. Here's an example. Americans have long been trained to see the deficiencies of people rather than policy.
So a few of the people we've had come in, Rashad Cobb, the COO of United Way, came in and participated in our groups with us. Lieutenant Aaron AJ Walker, the UWGB Police Department, has come in. James McGee also came in from We All Rise to just meet with us and share ideas. And we're looking to have a few more people come in this year, and hopefully maybe some of you would come in. So what you're on right now is just a link. We actually linked all of the presentations and things that we put together are linked in here. We wouldn't really have time to go through all of them, but that's part of the N-word discussion that we had. You don't have to play it. Then we'd have to have a big, long discussion about it. I don't know if you can get out of this and go back to the other presentation. Oops, I forgot to. I almost have a loud enough voice here. We were hoping that you would be able to experience one of the activities that we had put into our presentation for Black History Month last year. I think it didn't work because of the Wi-Fi connection and everything. So unfortunately, you guys won't be able to play Blook It, but I highly recommend it if you have a chance someday. So the picture that is up there is the example or the lead for the game that we play. And if you guys do go into the presentation and click on it, you can see the questions that were in there, and you can actually play it solo at home if you get a chance. It's kind of fun.
Is the game code available?
Well, you have to poll. Did I do that? You have to have someone to host the game, and then people join through the game code, and then you play against each other. You could play and then, You could play solo if you would like, and then you could see all of how it goes, even if there wasn't a game code. This took us weeks to make because the students had to research who were important African Americans to know. And then they had to write the question, and then we had to find a picture to go with them. So, and we have 32 minutes for lunch. So they would work really hard to find all of those ideas and put them together. But it was
and we allow the students to do all the research. We as the adults don't do any of it. We kind of push and poke and prod a little bit and kind of like, how about we dig a little deeper? How about we find a little bit more? And we challenge the kids, but they find all of the information for all of our presentations, the Hispanic Heritage Month, the Asian American Heritage Month, African American Heritage Month, and all of the months that we've celebrated thus far. So looking forward to them continuing to do that research and lead that way as well.
Why it is important to have this group in Franklin to stop people from being racist, tell people what is okay and what is not okay and why. Also to learn about other people's cultures and bring awareness to staff and students' perspective. The need or reason to have this group issues, the concerns and exists. Prioritize how students can work to improve our school culture, being students in to the discussion of change versus bringing students for detention.
What's next? We are planning to host a school movie night and discussion around the movie Till. We are hoping to have a guest speaker come and talk to us about the land acknowledgement. Promote participation and get a group of us to attend the Martin Luther King Jr. celebration in January. Find another leadership seminar to participate in. Create a mural for our school celebrating our diversity, inviting others, including you all, to join us at one of our Wednesday meetings.
So just to wrap up, I would like to say that we also have Mitch Brabender helping during one of our lunch times. Sherry Schill and Amy Roble has helped in the past too. So we don't want to take all the credit. They just weren't able to be here tonight. But I'll turn it over to Tyra.
Thank you for listening to us.
All right, board member questions? Yeah, Nancy.
What time is the Wednesday meeting?
So we have 3 lunch hours. So the first 6th grade lunch that Tyron is the only one here from 6th grade lunch day. That's from 10:34 until 11:08.
I had to look. And then lunch B is from like 11:30 to about 12:05. And then lunch C, which is a group that I normally get myself and Mitch Brayburn to do, and that's 12:20 to about 12:55.
And the first lunch is all 6th graders, and then the lunch B and C is a combination of 7th and 8th graders.
Brian? That's it. Okay, Laura.
I just want to thank you for doing this work. It's so important. And you guys are showing adults how to lead. And thank you for doing the work. I really appreciate it. I will be sure to come to one of your meetings. And I just really appreciate this.
Brian?
Thank you also for coming out. This is a fantastic program you're running. I have two questions for it. About how many students do you anticipate participating throughout the year? I'm sure the group fluctuates as the year goes on in other activities. And what can we do as a board to help support you?
Well, we have in the sixth grade group, we have, do you think about 10 students? Most Wednesdays we have about 10 sixth grade students, and it varies. I think there's probably about 20 different students who come on different days.
In our lunch C group, there's normally anywhere from 12 to 20 any given Wednesday. We also have SAS, which is a program for our young ladies to do some engineering and some other things. So sometimes we compete with that, and they have to go on at the same time on certain Wednesdays. So I would say somewhere between 12 and 20 on most Wednesdays. Yeah. And then as far as how the board could potentially help us and assist us, I think making sure other schools know that this work is being done and led by students. And I think that other schools would benefit from this opportunity to see this. And then also, find a way for us to get this information to other schools so they are aware, and maybe not reinventing the wheel, and trying to maybe help get this program started, get something like this started at their schools and just throughout the district as a whole, to keep doing this work and keeping it all going, and letting our student voice be heard.
Laura?
That being said, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the educators for doing this, because I know with my son in middle school now that you need educators that are willing to lead and support the student groups, or they don't happen. That could be really difficult. So thank you for that as well. This is the way to make a difference in our community. So grateful.
Okay, yes.
I think the work that you guys are doing is really amazing. And we're just high school students. And I think something like this could benefit people of all ages. And the leadership that you guys have at such a young age is really amazing. And I think when you go to high school, keep doing stuff like this, because it is so necessary. And we don't always have a lot of students who are willing to continue this type of work. So good job.
And I just want to say that the work that you guys are doing is awesome. Your leadership skills are honestly 100% amazing. I honestly wish that I had a club that I could have joined in middle school like this. And I believe that this kind of group should definitely be at the high schools, and definitely should be at all the other schools. It's amazing. I'm really proud of you guys.
Brian?
What type of feedback have you received from within the Franklin community, from either parents and other staff members, just specifically with Franklin, especially staff and parents input from it?
We've actually, when we started out the adult group, we had a couple of parents who were on the group in discussions with us, and their children now are on the group here. So it's been really cool. We have one mom who created several, it's like discussion topics. So if we haven't had many weeks where we didn't have something to do or an agenda, but they're just like filling questions where we can talk about, where do you see racism in your life, in the community, in the school, and then it just is discussion topics. So it's really great to have the family input as well. It was exciting when we went to the Bias Inside Us, because we had as many family members coming as students. So it wasn't just the kids go on this trip, it was the whole family, younger siblings came along as well. So I feel like it's been really well received.
It has been really well received, but it's also been educational to sometimes see where we learn through our uncomfortable situations. Like there's been some teachers and adults that are like, this is uncomfortable. And we're like, at first when you hear that, it's kind of like, whoa, wait a minute. But then we're like, wait a minute, growth happens when we're uncomfortable. And so we have those uncomfortable moments, and it opens up conversation. We all have different backgrounds, different walks, and it's been great. I mean, we have so much to do in the school setting, but when we get those opportunities to break that down, break those walls down and have those conversations, we learn something about each other. I think it makes us better as a staff and makes us better for our students. So that we've grown from those difficult moments. So.
Laura?
So I'm sure you've heard this before, but I'll just repeat it. This is how you change the world. Honestly, the things you are doing, it maybe doesn't feel like it, but I honestly believe that these steps that you are taking can actually change the world. So more specifically though, if you guys could like send the board an email about your meetings, maybe some dates for coming up soon, that will give us the ability to check our calendars and see about availability. And we would love to join you. I'm going to do my best to attend at least one of your meetings and see kind of what that looks like. Okay. I think that's it.
Brian?
I just want to stress the fact this is a completely grassroots organized activity. So it's not as if some template was given to the two teachers and said, this is a good thing to talk about. So as you look at sharing this with other schools and, promoting it, I think stressing that fact is really, really important, that this is completely student driven as far as the topics that are coming up and just the initiative on there. And like other people have said, the support from the administration and from the teachers is fantastic. So thank you once again for taking your time to organize this and get this off the ground. So thank you.
Akari came a little late, but he is also in our 6th grade group. So I wanted to just take a moment to introduce him as well. So.
I have one. I wasn't sure if I was going to say it or not, but I'll say it. And if it's just too long to get into here, I'll respect that. But just in a short summary version, did the group come to a consensus about the Kendrick Lamar and the guest he brought up on stage, who he stopped from, or did opinions kind of diverge on that?
It was very vast, and ironically, the way the conversation went, the people who agreed and thought that the lady was okay, and the people who disagreed, it was very eye-opening because you never saw it going that way. But no, there was no agreement at all. And that was the difficult part of the conversation, even when we moved it, because we showed that same video to staff, and we had to be okay. We had to agree to disagree and be able to respect thoughts and ideas and the why. But that's what made the conversation, I think, so powerful and so great. And so honestly, a great learning experience, because we don't get to have those conversations, especially with each other as staff, as often as we probably should. And even for these guys, like, to hear some of their passion around it and some of the things they were saying was like, whoa, like I think he barely talks in class, and he spoke so passionately around that. So there was it was just a time for sit back, listen, understand the why. And we definitely did not see it. We just did this and then it took off. It blew up. So no consensus.
Which is absolutely okay. It led to a great conversation, and it was an interesting situation where a person is called up on stage, sing my song with me. She knows the words to the song. Everyone who's seen that video now knows, if they're called up onto that stage, for sure, that if I'm ever called up onto stage at Kendrick Lamar concert, I know to skip. I would have probably skipped it anyways, but I'm not there, so I don't know. But should I be at one, we know now but we know what his wishes are as an artist, right? And so there's still more discussion. I'm really glad to hear, even though it was also correct not to play it here through the meeting, but it's easy to find if people want to find out what happened. And those are, not being afraid of the discussion because it might be awkward. And I think that too often we're afraid of conversations. When we can create, places and spaces for that, that's wonderful. And I too have great admiration to see middle school students stepping up and leading like this. And thank you so much. Okay, up next we have
Mr. Calloway, we will not be offended if you guys want to leave during the rest of this meeting. So
all right. So next we have the presentation on the annual 2021-2022 annual progress report.
Okay, Mr. Becker and board members, tonight we're going to be joined by Dr. Wiegand and her team, Dr. Chartier, Andrea Landwehr, and Claudia Henriksen, the executive directors for student services, school leadership, and teaching and learning.
I don't envy you guys. That's a hard act to follow.
Never won.
Yeah.
I think we're set up.
But it also is a great addition to our report this evening, actually. So thank you for taking the time to have us and to share the annual progress report. We're going to go page by page, line by line. It is a long report. There's a lot of information in it. So for this evening, though, we would like to highlight some components. We did put together a very brief slide presentation. You will hear about some of our successes, but you're also going to hear about some of our significant challenges. And so we're going to be very upfront about some of those challenges that we are facing here in the district. So let me begin by stating that we're going to start with the state report card. And the state report card is we'll start with the district report card. Our overall score was 58.3, which means as a district, we are meeting expectations. The state report card is divided into 4 areas: achievement, growth, target group outcomes, and then on track to graduation. So what we want to do is highlight each of those 4 components. And as we're highlighting those components, we then would like to share information of how we're responding to each of those areas. So I'm going to begin with the achievement and growth. I'm going to ask Nancy Chartier to talk about that part.
Thank you. And thank you for having us and allowing us to share our progress report. First of all, I think it'd be best for me to start to let you know these are not percentages, that these are average scores. That's one misconception that sometimes is out there. So this is an average. Your achievement score, the way that the Department of Public Instruction comes to what your achievement score would be, only the students that are tested and are enrolled for a full academic year are in these results. There are 4 performance levels, and the upper level advanced, obviously you get more points for. So for an advanced score, you're weighted in 1.5, proficient 1, your basic 0.5, and then below basic, we receive 0 points. The other key point that I think is important is in order to reduce the year-to-year fluctuation in the test scores, this is a 3-year average. So it's average, like I had just gone through the scale system, every one of those years decreases as you get to the most current year having the greatest weight. Let's see what else I can share with you. So all of the scores, student scores are all pooled together. And then the averaging process occurs over that 3-year period. So there's 3 years of data here. It is an average, only students that are full academic year. And those that have students that have tested and completed the exam. Good. I think that when we speak to the achievement, I know Dr. Regan had shared that we're going to also share some pieces that we have in place or that we're working on in the district to as evidence of what we're doing to address our achievement and growth, but I'm going to share those wonderful events until I go through the growth so that we keep in mind that there's really 2 measures that go on in this report card. And one is the attainment, which would be your achievement that I just shared, but also then your rate of improvement. And that's your growth score. And it's really the growth score on your report cards are really give us the indicator of how rapidly students are gaining knowledge and skills from year to year. So this is a year to year comparison, not an average comparison. And it really, it changes a student's performance over time, and that's what they focus on. Also, the pace of improvement in school performance in a school or district is compared to the growth of similar students across the state. So if you take a look up, we have a 0 to 100 scale, and you can see that that scale is our comparison, and the gray looking bar that's the growth that's made in the state. The dark blue would be the district's growth. And as we might note that the priority area in this area, the school district is actually rewards a school for helping students to improve performance regardless of where the student's achievement is. By measuring students' progress over that time. Did you want me to touch on a few things of these? Okay, sure. So to address the growth and the academic pieces in the district, I think we want to talk about accelerated growth, where you're looking at your achievement and where you're at, but you're really focusing on moving that student along the continuum of learning with intentional teaching. As you know, because you have approved many of these things, we have many levelized resources so we can teach students to their just next teaching point. We also have various student resources in the student's first language. The new middle school math adoption will be coming in March. Hopefully you will secure or you will approve our high school math adoption. Also, our written curriculum that is aligned to the Wisconsin state standards. This is the test that measures how well we're doing towards the state's identified standards. So they give us the standards and they give us the test, and everything in between is our work to bring forward. Also, students that are coaching, elementary has a standards-based report card that really focuses on the standards that they're looking to meet. We have a balanced instructional framework that too then allows for students to have that individual attention, work in small groups, share with peers, but also allows for the teacher to meet the individual needs of the students. And then the next piece we're going to get into a little bit later is our multi-level systems of support that really pulls out the achievement that our students are making, but also how are our students responding to the learning. And then those that aren't making sufficient growth will then go through what we call the multi-level systems of support process. And I think that kind of ties it right up. And as you might know, and that's a very important piece, the higher the growth scores, when you're looking at individual school report cards or at a district report card, the higher the growth score, it may point to the success of a program or improvement process. So when I'm going to boot this over to Andrea right now, and she's going to talk about the continuous school improvement. So when we're reviewing the individual report cards, this is the growth report card is usually an indicator of the successes that a principal in a school might have toward meeting their continuous school improvement goals.
Thank you. So I heard Nancy talk a lot about school improvement and looking at the report card, both the academics and then also it with growth. So achievement and growth. And when we look at school improvement, we look at it through the lens of the intentionality of the actions by the adults within the system. So the student achievement is what we would call a lagging indicator. And all of the adult actions and the systems put in place, one, which is led, as Nancy said, by the school principal and the leadership team. It is with support at a district level through the different departments. So curriculum planning, curriculum resources, professional learning, that is done both at a district level and a school level. And then the adult practice, meaning the teacher practice and building the capacity for improvement within your professional growth is all what we call the leading indicator. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through some slides that share with you not only our belief system in our district about continuous school improvement, but actually what we're doing with our leaders in partnership for that learning to support our schools. So if you take a look at the first, if you take a look at the first wheel, that's the coherence framework from Bullen, and that is part of ASA. We have a partnership with ASA right now that we are using their 100-day plans and their roadmap journal for planning for continuous school improvement. We're in a transition right now. Our secondary teams have all been trained to go deeper with Bullen's coherence framework, and then also with ASA's process and systems for continuous school improvement. Our elementaries are being trained this year. So when you look at Bullen's 4 areas, you're looking at collaborative, cultivating that collaborative culture, and that's really the comprehensive systems in which we learn with and from one another in our schools. And then also us down here at district office. So we know that we have a district level director and executive director education team. We also have school leadership teams at a school level. And then we have collaborative learning teams at a teacher or classroom level, where that through line of accountability is we're working at a district level, talking about systems and structures of support, moving into a building leadership level where there's a team that's looking at how do we implement, and then moving into the collaborative learning teams where the teachers are actually having conversations about students, both groups of students and individual students, on what type of support they need to do exactly what Nancy talked about, and that is accelerating the growth of those children who are not progressing at the same rate as their peers. Then the second quadrant is deepening learning, increasing clarity and goals and intentionality of those goals. And again, it's not just student achievement goals, but we also are working on what we call practice goals, where we actually take baseline data on what we see with implementation in the classroom around adult professional growth. We measure that at a baseline level, mid-year, and then at the end of the year. And that actually becomes the evidence on what we need to help support teachers with that professional practice. And then also securing accountability. And that happens both internally and externally. So internally, peer-to-peer, it also is happening through our supervision and evaluation model, but then also externally. So what are we doing at a district level to make sure that we're aware of what types of supports our school teams need? And then also focusing direction, and that's just really working through being intentional and data driven and really looking at that intentionality when it comes to practice. Then on the right-hand side, this is our readiness plan, do, study, act model, where it's really our cycles of inquiry, where it's actually how we do, it's the process and how we do our work. Readiness is all about your values, your beliefs. Do our leaders, have they worked with their teams around gaining consensus around commitments? This is how we're going to do our work, how we're going to support one another and make decisions in the best interest of our children. Nancy talked about student-centered coaching. Student-centered coaching is really about looking at where's the student at, where are they, how are they performing, observing what they're doing in the classroom, and then working with the teacher around what shifts do they need to make in their practice to support that student. So readiness is all about, is the team ready to take this on? And we do support our principals and have expectations around developing that culture for continuous school improvement with professional practice growth. And then the plan is all around that root cause analysis, really looking at what is it, what's our current reality, both for adult practice and then also for student achievement. And what are some of the causes of that we need to work on, that we need to decrease barriers, increase and build capacity for improvement. And then do is really within that MLSS system of support, looking at implementing the strategies and really collecting the evidence on how we're doing. We do a really good job, I believe, in our district around the readiness, plan, do. The study check is when you bring your team together to analyze that evidence, collecting those artifacts, and then actually analyzing it, making decisions as a team around what are we going to revise in our continuous school improvement plans, and what are we actually going to scale up, meaning it's working and we need to go deeper with it so we can replicate it, transfer it to other situations, or even through our networking to different schools. And then that last act is really about what are we going to keep doing that's working, right? We've been to the board table a lot in the last couple of years, and we know that there's a lot on our educators' plates. So how do we narrow that focus, stay within that zone of proximal development for our adults and our children, and support to make growth and build capacity? Do you want to go to the next slide, please? The next 3 slides we'll have, and you'll all have this slideshow at the end, but the next 3 slides really gives you some information, the links on the actual work that we're doing with principals to build instructional leadership capacity. So we have continuous school improvement leadership conferences and collaboration with all 42 of our principals. Renee Every, Cindy Olson, Jess Melkor, and Peg Fisher are just one part of that. They supervise, they're directors that actually supervise, complete the supervision and evaluation cycle with all principals, but there's all kinds of other directors from Nancy's team and from Claudia's team that they collaborate with to actually support the schools and implementation. And then there are district admin. The second link is district admin principal collaborative meetings and professional learning. PK-12 admin meetings monthly. A large group of us get together. We do both operations and education agenda items. Then we break them down into secondary on the 3rd Tuesday for a morning, where they're actually doing what we call leading for learning, where they're taking on new information, a lot of theory, and then with expectations to bring it back into the school and put it into practice. Our elementaries Leading for Learning is on the fourth Tuesday. We invite you to join us. I can give you agendas, and in fact, some of the agendas are linked, but the dates and times and locations. Then our directors and all of our directors from all three of the departments, they do monthly principal site visits. They're going in and observing in classrooms for their own learning. The 4 supervisors of schools partner with the principals and do leadership meetings monthly, but then to check on progress of their school success plans, their intentional action steps. But then they do 3 times a year formal leadership conferences, and that's in the top link, the 22-23 leadership conferences. There you're going to see how they look at not just achievement goals, but also practice. They collect evidence artifacts from it for improved practice goals. And they have conversations around the progress of that and future planning conversations that the principal then brings into the building leadership team. On the next slide, Kenzie, you're going to see the CSI planning crosswalk. It's really a historical perspective of where we've been in the last 8 to 9 years with continuous school improvement. It'll start out where you'll see, can you click on that one, Kenzie? You'll see in the first link, you'll see what our traditional SSP template, school success plan template is, and the process rubric, how we moved into the work with ASA. ASA really got us to think around how do you have 2 to 3 year strategies in what we call a theory of action. And then how do you bring that down each year into 3 cycles of 100-day plans, where you're really looking at what are those impactful action steps. And then in that 4th column, you're going to see continuous improvement process, criteria, and rubric. It is a reflective tool that we started about 3 years ago using at the elementary level. It outlines different key components to continuous school improvement that you also see down the left-hand side. And then it supports the teams looking at where they at in that implementation phase for each of the criteria and what do they need to do to get to that next step on the implementation rubric. Then you're also going to see a link defining continuous improvement teams. Those are our teams within the MLSS system that we rely on to be the drivers of the work that is being done at our school. So you're going to see information on collaborative learning teams, a learning support team, when a group of students or an individual student is not progressing at the same rate as their peer. That work starts in the CLT, the collaborative learning team, with the teachers and his or her peers. Problem solving around different instructional practices, problem solving around different interventions at that tier 1, which is what we call differentiation in the universal. It moves into a learning support team when the teacher or a group of teachers need more support to help a student and to identify if the student's in need of tier 2 interventions and possibly tier 3. As you go through the tiers, you are increasing in duration, intensity, and frequency of the interventions and the differentiation. You'll also see information in there on the building leadership team, and then also the behavior teams, and then teams that meet on a regular basis here at district office. I encourage you, once you get the PowerPoint, to go through the links. There's too much information in one evening for us to share with you, but reach out to any of us. Reach out to Peggy Fisher, Renee Every, Cindy Olson, and Jessica Melkor. They are the ones doing that heavy lift in our schools, partnering side by side, learning with and from each other and the principals.
So we covered, sorry. So we've covered two of the four, right? Achievement and growth. And we know that coming out of the pandemic that we are rebounding, but we're rebounding to a level that is not where we should be when it comes to our overall achievement for the school district. And our growth is certainly supporting our scores on the state report card because our buildings do great work when it comes to meeting students where they're at and helping them grow, as Nancy had pointed out, and Andrea's work around continuous school improvement. But I'd be remiss to not indicate the point that our achievement's not where it needs to be as a school district. So let's go into the next two areas. In talking about our target group outcomes, which takes a look at the performance of our students in the lowest, I think it's the 25th or bottom quartile. And how do we respond? And then we'll also take a look at graduation, attendance, and so forth. So we'll turn back over to Nancy on that part.
Thank you, Dr. Regan. One piece I should have mentioned earlier, this is the second year of the Department of Public Instruction's new state report card. And I do want to go on record to say we absolutely love this next element of this report card and the information that it does give us, specific information. This, as Dr. Wiegand was mentioning, it actually takes into consideration the students' achievement, growth, chronic absenteeism, and graduation rates when determining what our overall score will be. The important piece with this, it is the students that are in our lowest 25% quartile or scored below proficient on the alternative assessment that's given. And actually it is designed to inform school districts and as a positive way of looking at your learners who need it most and need also when improving, they need most of these services, most of the attention. But in the same process as meeting those furthest from the standards, we indirectly are meeting the needs of all students. It's designed again, I want to say in the olden days, but I get laughed at for that, so I won't say that. It replaced the old closing the achievement gap score that we used to get on the old state report card. And this is now the new targeted group. So again, who's in this group? Only the students in the lowest 25 percentile or those taking the alternate assessment who scored less than proficiency. And how did we get the average score here or the weighted score here? They used, the Department of Public Instruction used the same weighted system that I had addressed in the achievement score, where the 1.5, the 1, the 0.5 to no 0 to the 0 in your balanced weighted system. And then that's also how the Department of Public Instruction weights all 4 of those components in that same way.
So one of the ways when they look at it, on track to graduate, there's 4 areas in the on track to graduate as well. If you want to move forward, Kenzie. Oh, then that. Thank you. It's the chronic absenteeism, graduation, 3rd grade English language arts scores, and at 8th grade mathematics scores. To get us as a district what our on track to graduate score is. As you can see, it's not where we need it to be, nor where we want it to be. So when we looked at that, we moved to a multifaceted approach of how we were going to attack this. And one of the things I need you to understand too as a board is that when you look at chronic absenteeism and attendance rates for schools, that includes students that are suspended as well as students that are absent with or without excuses. So be aware that sometimes that's skewed in some of our schools. But some of the things that we're looking at doing is reviewing and updating our attendance guide. So we had like notes that were written that the secretaries got at the beginning of the year. We've really turned that into more of a manual so they know how to really focus on how to take attendance and to score attendance and those types of things. Our social workers also have binders of things that they can do, resources they can do to keep students coming to school and to change that trajectory. We created a workflow to support the communication between the buildings and central registration. There were some communication issues. Different schools were communicating with central registration in different manners. Central registration now has the help desk tickets, so they can send you to the direct person who will be able to help you with any of the questions you have around attendance. We use our existing infrastructure to promote the real-time data. So although the data that we're going to see from the DPI is lagging data, we also have current data that we keep on track of, and we're using Panorama, which you all graciously approved us to purchase, to enable us to stay on top of that and to leverage that so that we're looking at the entire child. When we're looking at attendance issues, it used to be the social worker working in isolation, sitting down and saying, it's ready for the 5-day letter. Maybe I should call home. Now, these students who are chronic absent, who have chronic absenteeism, would come to a learning support team, and everybody would be looking at the entire child. So that would include looking at, are they particular days of the week? Is it particular times of the day? Are they struggling in math? Are they having behavioral issues? So that we're not just looking at the social worker going off and doing her work or his work or their work on their own, that they're doing it in collaboration with their partners, so that we are doing a team approach when we look at that. We're also tightening up the expansion of the 5-day letters and making sure that there's a system that goes out automatically for if a student is out for 5 days without an excuse, they get a 5-day letter. And I'm not sure that you all know that. If they're out for 10 days without an excuse within one semester, they get a 10-day letter, and then a 20-day letter is pretty much the last level. But those are the letters that go home to the families. It doesn't take into account all of the conversations and the collaboration that's going on with our staff to the families and to the students. Because if you want to go to the next one, because when we look at our data for all of the areas of graduation, chronic absenteeism, 3rd grade English, 8th grade math, we continue to see disproportionality, and certain subgroups continue to be those groups that are struggling the most. So we started 2 years ago our culturally and linguistic responsive teaching practices, and we continue to move forward on that. Last year was a final year. Well, COVID got in the way of a lot of things, but last year was the year that we expected all schools to be done with the first group of activities from the Dr. Holly work. And that is around understanding what cultural and linguistic responsive practices, teaching practices are. This year, we're delving into behavior management. And when we say that, it's not the discipline part of behavior, it's how do you grasp the attention of everyone in your classroom in a culturally responsive manner? How do you let them know that you're honoring their culture? And by a different culture can be different in every classroom. So it's not just about race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic status or disabilities. It's about the culture of that classroom and helping teachers to learn how to grasp and understand and work through the culture of that classroom. This year, we've also got 6 schools that are receiving coaching. That's beyond. So they're building capacity within their buildings. They're going through the entire modules of Dr. Holly and becoming leaders in their building on how this can look in our building, how we take the tenets we've learned and apply that to our buildings. Much like the Franklin group did it on their own, and I was extremely happy to hear about that. Different schools are at different places. So and by the way, Franklin is in their coaching year. So they are being coached right now. If we go to the next slide. This year, you all know that we also introduced social emotional learning in a culturally responsive manner. So we have the CRM, culture responsive minds, and that's curriculum which is grounded in culturally responsive pedagogy and strategies. And so that is done in the mornings. And what we're hoping is that we're building connections with our students and that the students are finding safe adults. They're finding a place where they can talk, where they can feel like they are being listened to and that somebody is listening back to them. In all honesty, it's going extremely well in elementaries. They're embracing it because it's built into that. There's circle time in elementaries and they're used to teaching the whole child. Our secondaries are learning and they're growing, but they've been used to being content specialists, not I'm going to embrace everything. And so we're walking them through their fears this year and they're learning how to do this. And they're expected to just be dabbling in it and trying it throughout their what they call advisee time. But that's how we are trying to address a number of those areas on the on track to graduate, on the target group outcomes in a culturally responsive manner. So we get at those subgroups.
Thank you, Claudia. Before we go on to the progress, can I have you please go back to the system of framework for learning? Because you're probably wondering, how do you organize all of this learning and all of these services that are going on in a school? And I promise I'm not going to go through this comprehensive MLSS framework, but it's worth the read. Many of you have asked, what interventions do we use? How do students get in interventions? Everything in a nutshell is here from how we teach, the universal behavior, through what types of interventions we use, what is the process. Andrea addressed the different teams that are at the school, but also the teams that are within this comprehensive MLSS framework. And, you know, we've been in this work for going on 8 years, and the saying still resonates until you get until you get continuous improvement right. You can't get the multi-level systems of support right. And so if you do continuous improvement right, you'll have a good start towards an effective multi-level systems of support. And if you do multi-level systems of support right, you will be engaged in a continuous school improvement process. I know that's a lot of words and it's heavy for a 6:10 meeting, but I would please take time, and any time you'd like to have any discussion around any of the components, if you just click on that so they could please just view that. Any of the components, this is the first time that we have shared this publicly. It's usually used as an internal document and it is revised, and between our departments, it's revised every year. We add new interventions. And again, you'll notice that Panorama is now the tool in which we do our progress monitoring throughout that system. Anything else that you'd like to add to the MLSS system?
Well, we are asking student staff to use the MLSS, the Panorama, to utilize Panorama, to start to utilize Panorama when they're in their LSTs, when they're looking at the data for students. So we're expecting that when you're going to an LST, interventions have occurred already in any or all of the areas of strength or weakness, so that we are again addressing the whole child. All of the data is in one spot. We don't have to go from spot to spot to spot. So I see somebody raise their hand.
I am wondering if there is a place, or if there could be a place where all of these resources could be kept for people that are interested to go and read through. Would be a little bit easier to grasp than to go back and try to find the PowerPoint, because some of this stuff you're sharing would be really interesting to delve a little deeper into.
Absolutely. You bet. Thank you for asking. I do want to touch on the targeted group outcomes. The data that the Department of Public Instruction gives us, even down to each school level, it ranks students who are at most risk of failing and failure. So as you might guess, we're taking those targeted, that real critical information, and our schools are using it to see where are these most in need students and where are they in our comprehensive multi-level systems of support framework. So each of these systems work interchangeably. I definitely had to bring that because I'm doing my pitch for the Department of Public Instruction. I'm telling you, this report card has a plethora of information to guide a district to closing gaps and improving student learning.
Okay, so we would like to go ahead and just highlight a few things regarding strengths from the annual progress report. So I'll ask Nancy to kind of go through these next few slides a little quickly if you could. Thank you.
This particular area is one that the board has asked us to monitor, and that is our independent reading levels and the percentage of students who are proficient at each grade level. As Dr. Reagan mentioned, we're nowhere near where we desire to be. But I can tell you that there are practices and processes in place that the intentional teaching, if we're going to close gaps, we have to make more than 1 year growth every year, at least a 1.5 growth every year in order to shrink that achievement gap. And so that's the work we're working on. I did prepare some notes regarding our first, we had our first interim assessment, but I will share that I'll share that for some other exciting time. We are on pace, but we definitely know that there's work to do again, you approved ESGI and the foundation, the tool that teachers in pre-K 2 are using to collect the foundational skills. And maybe we can have some teachers come back and share with you how they're using it. And we see immediate evidence in the foundational skills being taught more often. And I've heard nothing but positive comments back from the teachers in using that tool. So again, thank you for that approval. We will bring in more specific data as our first trimester, but this is our last year end of year data. I'm going to jump right into the areas of progress, and this would be in this will be the next slide, please. And this is our other measure that we report out on, and it's the mathematics district assessments number corner end of year, and it's early numeracy. And like early literacy, it is critical to building the foundation for in the early years for the later years to come. As you might note, we from 2021 to 2021, 22, we had a nice growth in kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. We had no scores in 2021. That was the spring of the year where we didn't collect the data in 3, 4, and 5. But this, the 21-22 year, that's the growth rate. That's the percentage of proficiency rate that we're at the end of last year. And again, we do have most current interim data that we can share at a different time.
The next ones. Go ahead. Nancy.
Oh, you want me to do those?
She was
All
trying to
right.
get-
Yeah, you bet they're positives. Another component of the new report card is really an area of progress where they're really, and Dr. Wiegand is going to address that redefine ready component in just a moment. But as you might see, that advanced courses, we pride ourselves in offering advanced courses, dual credit courses in the district. And our data for next year is even better, so I can hardly wait. But that's really a nice climb from last year, 19.8% advanced placement or our dual credit courses. Our dual credit enrollment is the next one. As you can see, we are very successful. We partner with NWTC and UWGB in offering multitude of dual credit courses. And coming next month, you'll hear the piece around our desire to have all of our courses, dual credit courses, offered both virtually or online, live online learning, as well as in our classrooms. So more to come there. But these are all the opportunities that our students in Green Bay have. And I believe we have close to 90 some dual credit opportunities in the district. So a very aggressive program. And so that's why all of our data, I believe that might be in the next slide, has come up even across all of our student groups. So not only did it improve for our overall district, but it also improved in each of our individual student groups, closed gaps and made gains in those advanced and dual credit courses. I'll take this through. All right, keep going. The industry recognition credentials, this would be very much in line with the Wisconsin workforce and the courses that we take in our students take in our CTE courses. Many of our courses that we offer are in our family ed courses that meet the Wisconsin workforce certification. And as you can see that another one that we're going to knock it out of the park even next year, but this is really phenomenal to know that 5.8% of our student body actually they're leaving high school with an industry recognized credential that would walk them right into a job, right into a skilled job, so on and so forth. So again, it's a wonderful opportunity. Our next piece is our work-based learning. And we have improved I don't know if we've improved, but the chamber actually partnered with CISA 7 and we partnered with CISA 7. And our goal is to continue to increase the number of our students who have work-based learning opportunities. And so that would be one area. So far, we had 35 students that participated in that program. We already have seen a significant increase since partnering with the CISA 7 consortium. Please.
Okay. No, Brian?
Just for a little clarification on the work-based learning, that is separate from students that would have that written into their IEP for students that are receiving services with that. So that's a separate program compared to work-based programs tied into their IEP, correct?
Yeah, I was going to say it could be.
But it's different than work experience. So work experience for our students with most significant disabilities. This is different, but we do have students in the work-based learning. And we are expecting to try to merge that and have even a greater amount of them in the program next year.
Thank you, Claudia.
I'd like to ask where we are in this presentation. This has been, it's important material. It's also been well over 30 minutes. This is the second of 17 items in our agenda, and just want to see where things are at. I was hoping for a lot of time for board questions on this, more so that to me is the most important thing. So just wondering where we're at here.
About halfway, but we could certainly move faster if you'd like. We'd like to talk about the next part of it. If we want to go ahead, Kinsey, regarding suspension, expulsion, along with our mental health and well-being of our students. If we could highlight some of those areas.
They're all important. I just want to make sure we have adequate time to have board comment guide what we're doing here. So thank you.
I can do mine in 5 minutes. Is that okay? And I'm the rest of it, that part. 3. Okay, so coming out of COVID, just so you do know, the suspension rates, if you look up there, we're looking at what DPI has put out for us. And so this is 2 years behind. This is the 2020-21 data. That's when we were in COVID. And then the year before that was when we went into COVID in March. So I want you to just be careful when you look at that. So it looks like our suspensions went down, but there's still, you can see the disproportionality for our American Indian, our Black, and our students with disability, as well as students in poverty. Same when you go to the next slide for expulsions. We're seeing economically disadvantaged, highly outnumbering others in that, and we're keeping close tabs on that, which is why we've added some of the culturally responsive practices. Coming out of COVID, we also know that our students have suffered social, emotionally, mental health wise, anxiety, a number of different issues. So we highlighted it on the next one, our YRBS data, which is youth risk behavior scales. And this is the student self-report this. We did it last year and we're planning to do it this year. We're supposed to do it every 2 years, but we were skipped 2 years while we were in COVID. So we did it last year and we want to get back on track and do it again this year. This highlights, if you go to the next one, the bullying and what students perceive for bullying. The following one is a sense of belonging. And the third one is anxiety. And all of those are highlighted because those are areas where we feel like we need to improve because of coming out of the pandemic and what we're seeing with our students. So we're upping our social emotional supports in our district. And some of that mental health and well-being, Kinsey, we started Sources of Strength, and that's been actually been going on for a while. Sources of Strength is for high school and Hope Squad is for middle school. And that we had a number of students participate. You see all of that, but these are students that have been trained to help each other and to seek to see signs in each other and then run and have support groups and things like that for each other. Okay. So they do suicide prevention, gatekeeping training. School-based mental health services, we've had for a number of years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 schools that have on-site school mental health services from the outside community that come in. This year, we got Kennedy added to that, as well as Minoka went from a half day to a full day. Our next steps are that we want to look at an implementation of a universal screening to promote the early identification and intervention. We're looking at that right now. We've got RFIs out for that, and we are bringing together groups for looking at a universal screener for that. We looking at possibly using Panorama for that as well. We're conducting professional development on using cognitive behavioral therapy boxes and how we can individualize counseling through that. That's mostly our social workers, counselors, and psychologists that are using that. We're enhancing our access to mental health services via teletherapy. So the policy just got rewritten for teletherapy, so we can have teletherapy in our schools. We're on the verge of adding a contract with an agency that's kind of like a headhunter, so to speak. And they said that they can get us mental health services for underinsured or non-insured folks. And that's where a big struggle that we have in the district. So we're looking at making sure we can help expand our ability to give the kids what they need and expand our school-based mental health as well. Ooh, that was more than 3 minutes, wasn't it?
Last fall, we came to the board and shared that we're also moving with redefining READY, which is a national program, because we do believe our students are more than a test score. So a lot of the data that you do receive in the state report card is based on ACT and forward exam. And so as you take a look at the redefining READY scorecard, this is our first report card or scorecard that we've released. And so again, take a look at those indicators to determine if a student is college ready, career ready, or both. Our work this year is to define the metrics for the middle level. And then next year will be elementary. I think it's important that we take a look at those measures that we know are really important and start monitoring them from the very beginning, such as attendance. When students start school, those are habits that we have to take a look at from the very beginning before they get to the high school. level. Taking a look at self-regulating behaviors are going to be metrics that you'll see in the elementary and middle scorecard as well. So again, another way for us to continue to take a look at how our students are doing and what can we do to improve our outcomes.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I was just gonna ask if
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think it's very important that we look into other aspects of academic success, because I know that they do the achievements, correct, off of the ACT scores for high schoolers. And we just took the ACT last year, and it's one day at 7 a.m, and it's hours of testing with one small break in between. And I think to determine our academic achievements off of that one day is a little silly, because there's a lot of other aspects that go into it, as AP courses, dual credit, career readiness, because not everyone plans on going into a higher education after high school. So I do think it's very important to look at some of those other statistics, just so you can get a better idea of a wider range of students, rather than just looking at students' ability to take one test on a specific day.
So as we take a look at our annual report, and I think it's important to highlight the challenges. The demands on educators is just incredible. And I know that our superintendent did a beautiful job in an interview this last fall with CBS that really highlighted the fact that sometimes, you know, as a country, we've kind of, when it comes to people going into the profession itself, right? It's a struggle, and there's a lot of demands on our educators. We're seeing increased emotional and social needs of our students and families, especially coming out of the pandemic. The length of our instructional day. I believe we have, remember from the data, one of the shortest days from our neighboring school districts. That's really hard to teach then for transfer. One example just this year with the implementation of our new middle school math resource, mid-school math, we have to take our resource and adjust it to our day, which means that we have to take then things out that we will not teach because we don't have time within the school day to teach it. And probably one of the most important pieces, the fourth bullet, is the unconscious bias, implicit bias, which was great, that was highlighted in a way from our Franklin Middle School students earlier this evening. I was going to say we could provide a lot of examples, but I'll say let's take a look at our annual report and the data, and you'll see the unconscious bias or implicit bias coming through when you take a look at the disparity in our attendance, our achievement and our discipline numbers. So those are some significant challenges that we're facing. And so then to wrap up, I would just like to share some final thoughts for you as a board prior to taking any questions. I would hope that we could take a look at our strategic planning, our strategic plan. The last time it was done in 2014, maybe time to revisit that, as well as in the alignment of the resources. Operate a $300 million budget. Can we take the time to take a look at our strategic plan and the alignment then of those resources to those initiatives? I think is important. The equity, diversity, and inclusion core commitments that you approved back in November. First, thank you. Important that your voice was there and that you approved those. And we'll be bringing forward then over the next couple months, those goals and action steps. Ongoing.
I just want to say that, and some of them may be bold action steps. And so we're looking for you to support us in some of that. And truly believe in what the equity and diversity and inclusion core commitments are about. Sorry.
Ongoing program evaluation, as Andrea pointed out, under continuous school improvement. and the whole plan, do, study, act cycle. We're really good at planning and doing. And that's not unique to Green Bay. That's just public educators. We're really good at that. We're not so good at studying and acting. And we need to take time to take a look at, because we do a lot. We need to take time to take a look and do that program evaluation on, are we getting the return on our investment? Is it doing what we expect it to do? The programs and the services that we're providing. And any organization should have that built in. And so we are working on that currently this year to have all programs and services on a cycle so they go through an evaluation. And always remember to build on strengths, highlight some things that are going very well. And so we shouldn't forget that, because the work is hard, but we have to remember that there are things that are going quite well here in the district as well. So thank you.
All right, we'll turn it over to board questions and comments. Brian?
You had mentioned regarding dual credit and advanced placement classes, that 90 opportunities with it. I remember probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I heard someplace that in Green Bay, if you figure it out and schedule it, you can get about 1.5 years of college done while in high school. Is that number still about accurate?
Correct. 18 credits. Actually, students under state law can work up to 18 credits. The rule that goes around that is we can't offer the course on campus, but the duplicate course. So, but that is correct.
And then talking about those opportunities, the plan to make them able to expand and maintain and have an online presence was mentioned during the presentation. Will that continue to allow us to offer these 90 opportunities and continue hopefully in a cost-effective manner where we can do this? So the incident that, you know, we had spoken earlier, music theory class as an online op, I don't want to say anything that I'm out of incorrect on, but that'll obviously give us that opportunity to expand into all the schools and hopefully continue to offer these courses in a cost-effective manner so we can use what makes us unique from other districts.
Exactly. And I know that Dr. Wiegand and Andrea will be coming with some staffing at one time, point or another. And you know, we have 20 students in a class. We often have 6 in one school, 5 in another. And then it's, if we don't have enough to run the course, we don't run it. And I think that's perhaps what you're alluding to. And yes, even the dual credit courses can be on, we call it live learning. So it's online live, so that they will be working with the teacher who's actually teaching all 4 schools at the same time in that course. And that's the goal.
And that'll continue to be a Green Bay area public school district employee. It won't be some partnership with other neighboring districts. It'll be our teachers teaching our students, but just using that opportunity at 4 high schools as opposed to 1.
You're correct. That's exactly why we left the other teachers in a consortium teaching our students. We want our students to be enrolled in our courses. We well aware of the rigor and the opportunity, and we're positioned to do much better than what we currently are offering. And I know the staff is really appreciating those that have worked in the pilot or in the first year of Canvas this summer. They found it very user friendly, and students' response was great. So we have more to come for you in the upcoming months. That sounds like we're on the right track there.
Nancy?
Okay, one of the reasons that I ran for the board was because I really feel that we need to reboot what's happening in the elementary schools. I know I spoke with you and you, not you or you, but then the other people that were on at our meetings, okay? And what I feel truly is that you're asking elementary children to do way too much. They will learn their letters. They don't need to know them when they're 4 years old. Some of them can, but we're pushing the curriculum down their throats. They are not happy. They don't like school. you can try your best to do that, but it will come naturally. It's like everybody doesn't walk at the same time. Everybody doesn't do everything at the same time. We are micromanaging our teachers. They have so many meetings in the mornings, so many meetings at night. Right now, since the beginning of the school year, I have been volunteering from 7:15 until 11:45 in a first grade classroom. And I work so hard. And we do testing. Every Friday, we have a spelling test now. There is not a spelling program for elementary school. Their teachers need to have the materials in their hands. They need to know, I need to get through these books in first grade for these kids to be in the ballpark. If you keep individualizing and everybody has an IEP, which is a good thing if they need an IEP. But if you stop with with pushing the curriculum down, you're going to have so much more good free teaching and child success. We know we tried as a board to work on getting some of the tests gone. Okay, it was a try. We need to have a universal curriculum that is a solid thing. And I know there's much to do about the Lucy Calkins. It's all over, you can read what you want about it, but I think that's has been a problem for us. We need to seriously look at that. Now, then the other thing I heard was about decodables. And yes, decodables is an important thing, but it's not an end all. What is the thing that I have found through 44 years of teaching at all different levels it's called controlled vocabulary. It's the key for struggling learners. When I was teaching at Tank Elementary, when we were going into whole language, we said, there's an article in our WEA newspaper thing, and it said, struggling learners, whether it's because of socioeconomics or if it's because they're new to the country, the key for them is to control vocabulary, because then it's systematic enough for them to get it. At the end of first grade, if they have gone through all these books very well, they will have developed good skills. They may not be an independent reader yet, though. And that may not come until third grade, when they say by 8, everybody has a good chance of becoming an independent reader. But if you don't have something solid grade by grade, they can't grow. And that's what my big meeting was with you before. And I really want to discuss that more with you. And the printing thing is another thing. It's like we're having these 4-year-olds printing, kindergartners printing, they come to first grade. Many are holding the pencil like this. They're starting all over. When I first started teaching first grade, it would take 2 weeks to teach penmanship. It's taken 6 weeks and it's still not pretty, because we're unlearning all the things that they were just doing without being taught first. And so everything you say, I know everybody's trying really hard, but I think we have to get fun back into schools. Teachers need to be able to have fun with their children and not being, you got to get this, you got to get this. Writing will come along. Now, they had to have a how-to and a narrative already in first grade in the first 2 months of school. And they don't know how to spell words. They didn't know how to print. And they do have some ideas, but it's hard for a 6-year-old to go minute by minute in a writing something. It's just too hard. And I'm willing to talk and have people come into the classroom that I'm working in now, but something has to be done. We're not going to get that 25 percentile without changing something. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. We've had a lot of discussions about the work that's been going on, and always open to improvement and working together. I mean, that's what public education is all about. that we're all a team and we need to be wide open.
Yeah. Brian? Right. Yeah.
If you could just, you had spoken about the program, working on mental health with our underinsured students and the outreach and the telephonic nature, it sounds like with it. If you could just email me some information on that, just more in depth, I would appreciate it.
Sure, and the company's Care Solace and a number of the other school districts around us have added them on, but there's a number of people in like the Milwaukee area, Racine area that have been using them for a couple of years, so.
Other questions? James?
So I've looked at the DPI resources around interpreting the scorecards. And one thing I don't know I've found yet, is there any data source that trends report card data for the district against state baselines over time? Because the question reasonably put is, are we moving in the right direction against standards, right? Snapshot, I understand, I appreciate the candor that we have achievement gaps and that we're not where we want to, but is it worse this year than last year and in comparison, right? So I'm just trying to look for that data. Is there a source? I know that when you said this has only been in place for 2 years, I started feeling like there probably isn't a good comparative data set.
They've cautioned us not to compare this even this year because of some of the circumstances, like we had multiple schools did not have enough in their target school group to even get a growth score. And so there's just some abnormally, but there's some things that are abnormal about this year, and they've cautioned us not to compare this to any other year in multiple meetings that I've been in. But as far as comparing one year to the other, I would suggest that we follow our moving forward and even looking back at what we had, looking at what our overall rating of the district was, and we had been making progress moving forward. Again, not at the rate we'd like to, but definitely we're working towards that. So to your point, this second year of this report card, we've been cautioned not to make any comparisons with this report card to the previous year, because we had so many we had to have 3 years of consecutive data with 20 students in that data in order even for our growth in our target groups. We have actually some schools that didn't even get a rating this year, or those that were exceeding benchmarks that are now below or meeting few, and that you look at the report card, there's nothing reported out on it.
Go ahead, James.
Okay, so and our new report card that we're using, this redefining ready, the function of that report card, I understand its value to us, that there is more than a day of testing, right? But you said it's a national program. Are there other districts in state that will be able to then use this as a point of comparison against other districts?
It's actually the state of Wisconsin project, and we just teamed with last year we worked exclusively with CISA 7, but we're moving forward on our own because we have so many components, because we have departments that have the data collection, and we have processes already in place of collecting the data, and that was a lot of the work that we were doing with CISA the previous year. So because we're a larger district, we didn't have to put a lot of those systems in place.
Brian?
I'm sorry, yes, there are other states using the redefining ready metrics, so we can compare ourselves.
Brian?
Thanks, Andrew. I just want to clarify when you talked about being cautioned against comparing year to year, that's not something that was unique to Green Bay. That I would imagine that's a statewide directive from DPI to be careful with it. So it's not something that was unique to Green Bay that was going throughout.
You are correct. Both the Department of Public Instruction and also the Office of Assessment gave that caution. And if you can move to the DPI website and right on there, it says, you know, to proceed with caution and make sure that you aren't comparing this data, because many of our schools didn't have 3 years of rolling because of COVID. They dropped off, right? Especially our elementary schools. A couple of them got hit pretty bad.
Okay, thank you. I just have two things I'll add. First of all, I one of the things I most appreciate about what we're doing here is, along with the mandated state stuff that has to be presented with its some strengths and many weaknesses, although less bad than it was 10 years ago, certainly. Presenting our own data to let people know about other important things that we're doing here that aren't covered there. And this is not finding, you know, cherry picking some statistics that look, these are real things. These are college courses being taken. These are industry certifications, real things that people care about. And I'm glad to see that we are summarizing those and putting them out side by side with our state stuff. So the other question won't, you know, it's not something that will be settled tonight, but I guess I'd like to know where we go with it. You know, Nancy brought up some important points about a different side of a national discussion on this pendulum that swings back and forth. And, you know, I always try to, you know, find ways to get to the middle of that pendulum, unless we're on the wrong side and we have to go all the way back. So I didn't think much until I first talked to Nancy. I guess I just assumed, as a person logically would, who's not a educator. I mean, not an educator, certainly with the experience of Nancy. I had a teaching license for some middle school, but went another direction. But, you know, in 44 years of, and many of them, early literacy, although, Sean, every grade there is, right? Okay. But a lot of them early. So I put a lot of, you know, that's really important too. And I also understand the struggles of things being directed to us from, you know, from higher powers in the state and so forth. So what is the next stop? Where do we go next when we have want to take a look at something so big, as it's a big deal. I don't know enough to even have a qualified opinion yet on this, but I guess I can tell you, you know, my own kids read quite young, and I read quite young, and I visited a really dear friend last weekend, a little vacation with Heather, and her 5-year-old, though not reading yet, has an impressive vocabulary and is, you know, very conversant and obviously very intelligent. And just, you know, she'll have a whole conversation with you and then say, well, I don't read yet, so I'm not sure about that, but then we'll just on and on. And so, you know, there is that. So where do we go next with what Nancy is bringing here?
So I will give you an update. We have asked, Teaching and Learning have asked to be put on the agenda in January, because in March, we will be coming to you for resource adoption. We felt that it would be a great opportunity in January to go through what all goes on behind the scenes for writing the curriculum and how it all connects. But I can tell you that the we have completed writing all the content essential documents, not we, speaking French here. The teachers have in groups writing the content essential documents for our K-8 literacy curriculum. And they are moving into the next phase, probably a little clearer next month when we meet, into the next phase of now reviewing curriculum resources. So they have been reviewing curriculum resources. This is a massive undertaking because we're moving 9 different levels of a content area together. Usually we come and we're doing the middle school math, we're doing elementary math, we're bringing the whole K-8 curriculum forward at the same time because of the progressions in the continuum of learning. So where that will fall, I pretty much facilitate, and the folks that I work most closely with me work very closely with the educators who we've already started our list of all the educators who have already worked on this project. And we actually have a 5-year plan that I can give you.
Nancy?
Nancy, when I spoke with you that time, you said that you were already looking at yeah, and then it stopped, right?
Yeah, I think it'll make clear, absolutely. We're always looking for something better. First of all, we will be coming in 23, 24 at this time for a $2.6 million adoption. And so not that money's everything, but you have to write your curriculum and ensure that your written curriculum is aligned to the state standards. And then you look for a resource that helps you to meet those standards. And that's what we're going to talk about in January.
So like in the olden days, when we're using the books that I'm talking about, Green Bay did have that. There was a program that had just little beginning things in kindergarten. Then there was a 1st grade through 8th grade continuum, and it had a scope and sequence that covered everything. Is that what you're kind of looking
at? We're looking for a curriculum resource, and I think we may have taught it at the same time. And they're very improved resources. And also it goes without saying, to your point, the demand on student learning is not determined by our district. It is determined, we're in a standards-based state. The state determines what every child should know and be able to do by the end of any given year.
I'm sorry, but then how about like the federal and state? So that's so different then.
No, actually, we get the state standards from the state who would be aligning. There are no Common Core standards. We just align to the state standards, and we purchase resources to meet the state standards. And we spent a lot of time tonight on looking at the outcome of our report card based on, unfortunately, the state assessment. So it's pretty laid out for us, what we can and can't do. The board obviously has the right to adopt what they want their student population to know and be able to do at every level. And you are correct. Not every student is at the same place at the same time. And that's why in your curriculum, you'll see that we often call that spiraling. You go back and get them. So the first time you teach, you don't teach for mastery. And now I'm stealing my show for next month, and you got a lot more on your agenda. So does that answer your question?
I'm just going to jump in here. We're kind of drifting off our topic tonight, and it's already been quite a long presentation. So let's try to wrap it up. I think. Okay.
Okay, so nothing to be sorry for. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, team.
We're going to have a 5-minute break. Okay, we're gonna get started again. Who's doing the open enrollment discussion? Listen, okay.
Your microphone's on.
Yeah. Okay, everybody, let's reconvene here. Oh, we're waiting for Dawn. Oh, there she is. Okay, the next item on our agenda is C, open enrollment space designation, and I believe we're gonna be hearing from our legal counsel, Melissa Philcoller.
Good evening. As you know, annually, we're required to come to the board with the request for setting spaces for open enrollment purposes. Under state law, the board needs to the board needs to establish spaces in the grades and programs. By the end of the January meeting, because of the timing of when the January meeting is, we're coming here in December. We have the data available in order to make this recommendation. A school district can set spaces based on grade or program. You apply to a district, you don't apply to a school. So many times parents request a particular school on their open enrollment applications. And we may not be able to place the students in that school, but we can find a spot for them across the district in all of our grades. Where we struggle to have spaces even for our own children is in our special education program. There is a limited number of resources, a limited number of funds, and an extremely high limited number of staff. This year, I know this because I draft the contracts. We have had to contract with outside agencies to even be able to have the number of staff on hand to meet minutes and services in IEPs. So it is costing this district even more money to provide those IEP services because we cannot hire enough staff within the district due to the labor shortage across the nation of special ed teachers and various different support personnel that provide those services within an IEP. So our recommendation based on the number of students and staff using the formula that we're required to use from the DPI is to set spaces at 0 across our special education programs.
Dawn, yep. Dawn, go ahead.
Okay, so this is my third time doing this and I want to make sure that I understand. No other districts in our area open enroll students with an IEP, correct?
I don't want to say no other districts because for purposes of special ed, you set spaces by the program. So if you look at the table that's in your materials, it breaks down the different programs, cross-categorical in the elementary, middle and high, center-based elementary programs, center-based secondary, or early child collaborative, speech and language, vision, mobility, hearing. It may be that some school districts have 1 or 2 spaces in some of those programs, but by and large, the neighbors are setting spaces at 0 because they too do not have enough staff and they have a high number of students when the formula is done for spaces within open enrollment for special education.
So if you are a Green Bay student and you are in special education, you can't leave and go someplace else publicly. You could go to
private school, but you don't have the option of necessarily choicing into another public school in the district. Or, not in the district, outside of the district.
There are not enough spaces for students in Northeast Wisconsin who want to school choice through open enrollment to another school district, not just Green Bay.
So if we would open up these spaces, we would be diluting the quality of services we are able to provide because of the shortage of staff to students that have no options and to our taxpayers within our district.
If we would open up spaces, we would be in violation of our own students' IEPs because we would not have the staff to meet the minutes of our own students' IEPs.
Thank you.
Brian?
Just a quick question on the chart. As far as caseloads, do you know how we sit compared to other districts? And how do they come up with that number? And if you're not comfortable answering that, I'll take it as an email at some point from someone else who. Okay, or come back. Thank you.
Caseloads are determined by a formula that we got from the DPI. And so all the school districts use the same formula to determine caseload size. And it's a combination of a percentage of amount of services they need, as well as numbers. Yep.
Are we able to staff at a level where we have those at that case load? Like, are we meeting those numbers as far as our staffing?
Currently? No.
I guess I have a question then. So say if we open spots, that would be in, I'm just gonna pick one area where we're over by a bit, cross categorical middle school, projected enrollment 423, capacity 384. So if we open that up, we'd be in, you're saying we would be in violation of IEPs. Does that mean that we're in violation of IEPs right now? Why or why not?
So what we're doing is we're contracting services with outside agencies in order to meet the needs of our students because we are so short-staffed and unable to fill those positions. So we have used agencies for speech pathologists, occupational therapists, and special education teachers in order to meet those needs at a cost that's higher than what it would be to pay for a teacher. And in many cases, we're doing it virtually. Well, not many, but for the speech in particular, we're doing it virtually. And some of the students we're finding are not being successful virtually. So we're trying to have to reorganize caseloads so that we can get those that could do it virtually and mismatch. We're beg, borrowing, and stealing to make sure it works right now.
Okay, so where we are 39 enrollment beyond capacity and cross categorical. We're not violating IEPs because we are filling up that 39 spots worth of capacity with contracting.
Correct. And what the Department of Public Instruction says is recommended IEP caseloads. Teachers, I don't know if you've probably heard, I mean, they're calling us and telling us, and asking the principals for support because the needs of the kids have gotten so great that they are having difficulty having their lunch and their preps. And that's something that's entitled to them for in their contracts. So principals are even covering their classes so that they can get preps. Our staff is coming from district office to support them. It's a huge need right now. And it's not just our district. I meet with the directors of Brown County on a regular basis. We meet monthly, and we've all been talking about ways that we can make this work for all of us because they're all feeling the pinch.
Brian?
Just as a follow-up with a question I know the answer to, but I'm going to send this to our board members with it. When we look at cross-categorical students, that takes into consideration a whole range of students receiving services for that. So sometimes if a student has more labor intensive needs, for example, behavior and emotional needs compared to other spots, that still goes into that whole formula on that as well. So when we're trying to reach that caseload number, what it's doing is it's adding extra stress to our special ed staff when they're not able to. And while we're meeting the minutes, they're making do with it as best as they can. But obviously that leads to burnout and to staff turnover and other issues that we have continued to address as a board. So coming back to the initial question, we don't have room.
And the other way we're filling that need is we by and far have more paraprofessionals than any of the surrounding districts. They are amazed at how many paraprofessionals we have in the buildings. So if we see a high need, we're giving a one-to-one. So as to take some of that, so that the students are getting what they need, and then the teacher's able to continue to teach too. So in many cases, we're giving, like in our focus classrooms, they've got 2 paras and an adult in a class of between 6 and 8. And right now we're at 8 to 10. So yes, correct. Brian.
Anything else? Okay, thank you. And that concludes the education work session.
Thank you, Andrew. The next item on our agenda is operations, and that will be facilitated by Dawn Smith.
Okay, the first operations item on the agenda is item A, budget updates, and I think Angie Robley is going to be presenting that to us. Welcome back.
It's good to be back, Dawn. Okay, hello, everybody. So tonight, I'm going to be giving you a very, very high level preliminary look at what our future kind of looks like. This is an odd time to bring an update to the board with so many unknowns, right? We have a state budget that is coming that we won't know probably till late spring, summer, which will significantly impact our projections, and then as well as what we settle on for CPI, those types of things. But we felt it was important just to come to the board, give you a high overview of kind of where we are, so you can kind of see the range of the deficit that we're facing in the next couple of years after ESSER is done, as we go into all of our discussions next year, January, February, March, April, with budget retreats coming up. We have the facilities master plan. So this will just kind of give you high level overview, kind of where we're at, summary. And then if you have questions, feel free to ask at the end. Otherwise, in February, Sarah and I will come to the board, kind of give you a summary of kind of what we've spent from July through December. So we do that semi-annual review as well. So this is more kind of looking into the future at our budget projections. So next slide, please, Kinsey. So when so tonight, so we'll look at that budget cycle where we're currently at. I'll give you a high overview of our ESSER update and spending, and then we'll take a look at and focus on that 24-25 structural deficit number that we've been talking about for the last several months. So when you look at our budget cycle, we are, yep, go ahead, Kinsey. We're at the very top, which is called forecast modeling. So in the finance office, we're usually working in 3 different years, right? So we're doing audit for the previous year, we're working in current, and then we're also looking at projections in the future. So right after we certify that budget for 22-23, we're already into forecasting and into our budget model, projecting what we're expecting in 23-24 and beyond. So we're right up there at the top. So then we'll make our way through until we again land in October next year. So we're in that forecast modeling phase at this point. Next slide. So when we look at ESSER, so currently we have $12.5 million set aside for some of the expenditures like interventionists, our summer school programming, technology, KJ Academy, and then other eligible expenditures. So as I'll talk about in the next couple of slides, that 12.5 million is a significant number because that's really what takes to close that gap or to close the deficit. So without ESSER funding, we would be operating in a $12.5 million deficit. So with $12.5 million set aside, we have that 38.9 million remaining to be spent in 23-24. It seems like a lot, right? So we have been planning, we always have been setting aside that 50 million to cover our operational expenditures. We want to make sure that that's covered first. And then we'll plan as we go. If we see reductions, right, that one-time money, we'll make sure that that is what we are spending those ESSER funding or the ESSER funds on, so we aren't supporting legacy costs, which is causing that fiscal cliff in 24-25 that we've been talking about. Next slide. So when we came to the board in February of 22, we kind of looked at the Baird model. We, we kind of projected at that 5% CPI. So what we are in our current budget model right now that we're working off of, we're assuming flat staffing levels for the future. Couple reasons why we're doing that as of right now is because staffing really doesn't ramp up until January, February. So we really don't know what that's going to look like. So we've just kept that flat staffing levels. We'll update the model as we go through January and February when we kind of see what those levels look like. As most of you know, the estimate for CPI is sitting around that 8% mark. Last year, it was 4.7%. Significant impact. That'll be a significant impact on our budget. 80% of our budget is salaries and benefits. So depending on the way that the board votes, for that CPI increase on salaries, that will impact that deficit that we're looking at in 24-25, which I'll cover next. But to that point, a little bit different this year, since we don't know what that state budget is going to look like until probably late spring, probably not summer, right into fall. Once we know what those numbers look like, that's when we can come back to the board to say, okay, here's where we're sitting. And this is what a 0%, a 2%, a 4%, 6%. So we'll give the board all of those scenarios so you can kind of see how that's going to affect the district moving forward for those salaries cost, for that salary cost. So tonight, I'm just going to kind of give you a range so you kind of know what we're working with as we move into the future. We are expecting that $100 per pupil revenue limit increase. Shouldn't say expecting. That's what we have in our model. It seems conservative. We had 0 for this last biennial budget, but that is what other districts are using. I feel, it's a conservative number, but I'm not going to overshoot either because they could give money in several different buckets. So we're going to keep that $100 per pupil revenue limit increase until we know more. And then, of course, the enrollment projections, Josh will be talking about that later on tonight. We've updated the model to kind of reflect that declining enrollment, which of course affects our revenue and the revenue cap or the revenue limit. Okay, next slide, please. So here it kind of shows our structural deficit. So in these examples, I am using an 8% CPI increase. So the present or the 22-23, 23-24, that is just representing what we're currently using ESSER funds to cover that operational gap. So again, that 12.5 million deficit, that's why we have 12.5 million set aside for ESSER funds to cover that operational gap. And then in 23-24, that $27.7 million deficit, that is just representative if we would go with the 8%. Now on the other extreme, so if you look at the future, that 24-25, we've talked about $36 million. So at 8% increase, that would put us still in the $32 million deficit range. Now, on the other hand, to the other extreme, so it can show you the range, if we did 0% CPI increase, that deficit would be at about 17 million. So there's a range from about 17 million to 32 million. So I think the purpose or the point is that we still need to continue to do the work that we've been doing to reduce expenditures where we can, look at staffing levels, aligning them to our enrollment, decline. So continue to do that work and reduce, because 24-25 is where we really need to be focused, because that's what we need to balance when we run out of that ESSER funding. So this kind of just portrays the worst case scenario, I guess. But then on the other hand, the 0%, you're looking at more of like a $17 million deficit. Now, again, if the state comes through with more revenue, that's also going to look different, but it's so preliminary right now that, unless I had a crystal ball, right? Which we all wish we had. I'm not that magical. But yeah, so this is kind of just a snapshot of where we are and what we're projecting going forward. So does anyone have any questions? It feels very like not detail. But yeah, it's just we'll know more in several months, but I think it's important for you to at least know and have a basis of kind of where we're headed. Questions?
This is just a process question. Will you please remind me when the state or federal government reimburses ESSER funds?
Like when we claim. So we claim on a quarterly basis. So once we spend, then we claim to get reimbursed quarterly. Yes. So there will also be an ESSER update where we show like the quarterly spend in February when we come for that semi-annual report. So you'll kind of see what that trend is.
Thank you. So with just to piggyback on something you said about, you are using worst case scenarios. I think there are a point will come that we would have to make a decision if we're getting $0 or $100. And if inflation stays 8%, although historically it's not stayed that high for four consecutive years, it's not done that in a very long time, but it is certainly worst case. And to me, my individual priorities as an individual board member is to meet the needs of the kids. And if I had to make votes to do things against state directives to do that, or if I had to make even more drastic votes in the face of funding, if the state offered us funding that could not meet the needs of the kids, I think we need to be prepared to think about it. And then again, maybe unfortunate though it is that we were forced to use COVID money on a lot of non-COVID things to balance the budget, perhaps some common sense will prevail, but without fair maps, I'm not very optimistic.
So Andrew, I just want to make sure that, and Andrew, I'll address it to you, but in your budget assumptions, this is just the annual budget assumptions, right? So when we're looking at 8% CPI is what you're going into this planning year, you're looking at the decisions the board makes can lock that impact in if we look at raises or changes in benefits, right? So it's not that this has to stay at 8% over time. It's in the coming year, as we look at what it takes to retain and attract talent, if we turn that 8% into a particular percentage of raise, we're locked, right? And it'll just carry forward into the future.
Yep, great point. So when I put that 8% into the model, that's for the 23-24, because right now, right, we're at 4.7. So I put that in for the 23-24 projection. And then moving forward into the future years, like 24-25, I actually dropped that to 2%. So it's not 8%, because yes, that's unrealistic. That's going to drop. So I just locked in the 8% for the upcoming year for 23-24, and then 2% going forward. But yes, the impact of 8% obviously will carry forward, and compound.
I just want to clarify something when we're talking about phrasing on this. The 8% isn't a raise, it's cost of living adjustment, and when we look at these, looking at school funding and how we've done this since, especially since Act 10, to clarify that with our employees and within the board, that this is a cost of living adjustment for it, as opposed to a merit-based raise or anything else with that, which still will play into recruitment and retention of talent, but just the specification between the two. So we're clear on that.
So I always appreciate when you come before us and give us a serious dose of reality. Because we need to hear it regularly. And I hope people watching it are taking this in and understanding the pressures that are on how we fund public education in the state. It's not just Green Bay, it's the whole state. And we're kind of at the mercy often of powers that we can't control. And this is very, very frustrating. So we have to plan for the worst case scenario. It's the responsible thing to do. And a lot of this is about responsibility and what we owe our kids and what we owe our community. It's going to be some rough times ahead, I think, and hard decision making. I feel like our board and our staff are up to that. And I just want to, again, thank you. So when you come here, I was like, I'm ready to hear some more reality talk. So thank you.
I should start telling a joke or something, right? So we could at least like end it on a good note, right?
Right.
I just want to stress that it's important for us as a district and as a board and from throughout our departments to make sure that we continue to collaborate and work with our groups of employees that are going to be taking the brunt of this, because we're a labor heavy organization. That's what teaching is and education is, but that the discussions that have been taking place and continue to are being done honestly and with fidelity and with the best interest for all of the parties involved on it. So
I just want to assure you that I agree with you, Brian.
Absolutely. We have been and we will continue to. Thank you for bringing that up. And I hope the board recognizes that since Angie took over as leadership of that department, you're seeing a lot more of the budget information. That's purposeful, and it's because of her leadership. She wants to make sure that not only you hear this message, but she's in our ear constantly. She does not tell us jokes either, I assure you. But it's purposeful because we know where we're headed, and she wants to make sure the public and you have enough opportunity to hear the same message of where we could be and the tough decisions ahead. So thank you, Angie.
And as was mentioned during the Moody's presentation on the issuance of the notes, this district has continued to do this in a fiscally responsible way, as we have done for the last 25 to 30 years. And we'll continue to do that, being responsible with the funds that have been allocated to us by the taxpayers. So we have done this in the past, previous boards have, and I'm confident that this board will continue to, with our leadership, make those sound financial decisions to keep those ratings up and to keep what we've been doing for the last 30 years, or I'm just throwing out years now here, but as long as I've been familiar with Green Bay, that we've consistently done this in a responsible way.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Angie before we release her? You're free to go. Thank you for coming and enlightening us tonight.
And as always, thank you for the support and the questions.
Alrighty, our next agenda item is item B, enrollment projections, and that will be Josh Patrick.
Good evening. So you'll find on board docs an 87-page document. That is our annual enrollment projections. We do our enrollment projections internally here. Megan Tussle down in the facilities department works on that. It's a fairly complicated process that we feel pretty good about. I'm just going to run you through some of the highlights. I'll share my screen. Okay, a little bit about the methodology. So we get birth data from the state every year. And we have historical data of how births in particular attendance areas tend to translate into kindergartners, right? And then we have historic data for every school about how likely a first grader is to become a second grader, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of what gets put together and how these enrollment projections come about. You start with those birth rates, and then we apply a grade progression ratio is what Megan calls it in my classes for school. It's called cohort survival ratio. I think I prefer grade progression ratio better. That's kind of how it goes. We're a big district and this is a complicated community. So this is our best guess if trends hold. We are also, you may remember, as part of this facilities master plan, we commissioned an independent demographics report that will include enrollment projections. So that will also help us verify the work that's been done here. I want to direct you to page 7, which is, it's the 7th page in the PDF, but it's got page 5 as a page number. Births by school attendance area history. When we talk about our enrollment changes and challenges, this is where it all starts. You can see going back to the 07-08 school year, those kids would have been in kindergarten in 13-14, nearly 2,200 births in our elementary attendance districts. This last year down to 1,700. So that's fairly significant. And you can see the trend in the line graph there. And you see we have several years in a row of declining birth rates. This is reflected, I believe, in our younger elementary grades. We've seen enrollment challenges. And you'll notice it doesn't seem that we have rebounded or necessarily bottomed out yet. We really need to see those birth rates bottom out, and then 5 years later is where the decline in enrollment stops. So we do have some challenging years ahead here in terms of enrollment, more than likely. That is, yes, that is statewide. The birth rate is nationwide. Enrollment challenges statewide, yes, especially for our urban districts or large urban districts. We're actually we're doing better than like a Racine or some of the other districts in southeastern Wisconsin. Okay, directing you further down. You'll see some tables with growths and charts. I do want to get you down into the individual school charts. Unfortunately, the first one is Eldo, which is a choice school, so it's not a really good example. Because we kind of control the number of students that are admitted there. So if you maybe want to go down to Baird Elementary School, you see on the left is a history of enrollment. On the right is what our projections are telling us based on birth rate and grade progression ratios. Baird is an interesting story. Because for a few years there, we couldn't fit the kindergartners into Baird. So they went somewhere else. And then the new Baird got built. And the kindergartners came back. So we see a spike there. And actually we see fairly strong enrollment. Each of these individual school graphs is also going to have a capacity. So here it's at the top of the graph. At 600. As you scroll down through, you'll see the capacity showing up at different points on the graphs. So there's a chart like this for each school in the district. It starts with elementary schools, and then you'll see the middle, high schools, and specialty schools as well. So that is actually the bulk of the report, is the by school. As we get down to the bottom, we're going to have kind of district-wide projections using a few different methods. So you saw we have projections by each individual school, right? We can also do the same by kind of expanding out that geographic area. So we can start with the school's attendance area, zoom out to the quadrant, and see how historically a quadrant has behaved, and zoom out to the whole district to see how that's behaved. So that's why you're seeing multiple lines there, just kind of different methods. They all tend to, though, point in a similar direction, which is slightly downward, as we've seen over the last several years. Finally, this elementary feeder school graphic has been in use in the district for quite some time, but no one had actually done the math on how those kids were split in the last 10 years. So those are kind of fresh splits based on our current middle school population. And some of them have changed dramatically since the last time those percentage splits were updated.
So Josh, we didn't change where the split happens. We just reflected, we didn't change the lines, but we reflected the numbers to be the reality of where kids are ending up.
That's exactly correct. Any questions?
Brian?
Regarding that slide, students at Aldo and some of the other specialty schools, is it just, where do they kind of play into the projections? Is it based off their home school then?
Yeah, it's based off of their home school.
So Josh, when are we getting the facility master plan? It's next Monday?
That will be your work session in January. ATS&R will be here. We've seen kind of a preview of the documentation they've produced. It's pretty robust.
So, and I know Mike presented this in the past, and there is a lot of there's a lot of accuracy in these projections. Well, I guess you can't really say that, right? But I mean, historically, we've seen a lot of accuracy in the projections. I know there was a dip in 2016 for some reasons that threw us off a little bit, but typically they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're fairly reliable. I mean, you saw when Angie brought the budget here, we were only off by what, like 15 FTE, which is pretty good in a district our size. You know, there are some districts that are small enough where they like literally go and find every 4-year-old or 5-year-old physically, right? That's not something we're able to do. So yeah, it's been pretty good historically.
Oh, Vicky?
You teed that up perfectly, Dawn. The January presentation by ATSNR will be approximately 2 hours of the work session. I think that's important that the board recognize that, and we'll try to keep the rest of the agenda items light for that day.
Thank you, Vicky. We appreciate that. Brian?
Following up on that. This also in some way takes into consideration the transients population within our district and at a school level-ish or like a quadrant level. I'm just curious, or just overall.
Yeah, I mean, that's reflected at each grade level in each school, right? Because that's baked into the history of how that cohort kind of survives from one year to the next.
I was looking particularly at the west side, not just west, but southwest as well. Is that primarily that extreme? I would say it's a pretty extreme projected drop. Is that just population decline and moving out, just especially bad on the west side in those age groups?
You know, I'm really looking forward to that demographic study. I don't know if they may have better answers. I mean, you can speculate of what's going on there. And I think, you know, those are some well-established neighborhoods that are just aging out of childbearing years, but not necessarily aging out of their homes. Right. So we were seeing neighborhoods grow older. Right.
You're talking about me.
I was looking right at you, Dawn.
West side, aging out of childbearing, not aging out of your home. You're talking about me. Thanks, Josh. Sorry. Carry on.
But yeah, I mean, I think that's what I've observed. But that's more of a gut feeling that, I mean, I haven't done any sort of like rigorous study. I don't know for you West Siders, how does that feel? Does that seem?
In my neighborhood, yeah, I think Andrew and I are kind of neighbors. I think that seems a pretty good. Yeah. It's, you know what, it's going down. It's going way down, so.
Yeah, ours completely collapsed. I mean, there's just no, it's just, yeah, we have to, something. Yeah, yeah, there's no, you know, we had new neighbors move in, great people say, oh, you have any kids? Well, they have adult kids living with them, right? But, who don't have kids of their own. So I think there is just, you know, people are having smaller families, and this is just the tip of the iceberg as to what how that house of cards falls. So.
Okay, anything else for Josh before we let him go? Oh, you're up next. You're going to be our print shop leased equipment. I am looking forward to getting the facility master plan and really seeing how all this meshes together as we get into that work next year. Okay, item C, print shop leased equipment.
Yeah, so Jake's been really busy, by the way. This is a request to approve a 5-year contract with Rhyme for our print shop, which is kind of our large volume print jobs. So we received 5 qualified proposals. Rhyme did just edge out the other vendors in terms of the overall score there. We're looking at $75,758.04 per year to Rhyme, or I'm sorry, that's the first year, and then they guarantee increases will not exceed 10% over the length of that contract. And Jake will be here next week. If you have any questions for him, this is not my area of expertise, but I can certainly get answers for you. Are there any questions or concerns?
Okay. I think we're good. If anybody thinks of anything, you can email Josh before our meeting on Monday so Jake can be prepared to answer any questions we have. Thank you. All righty, then the next item on the agenda is the purchase of docking stations, and we have Amy Jacob. I think Amy's going to be with us for a couple different things.
Okay, good afternoon. This first memo that you have linked for you is for docking stations. We purchased docking stations originally in 2017, 2018. So they're going on 5 years of age. So this is our first refresh of them. They're not in a typical like refresh life cycle like our laptops are. But we're starting to see that they are beginning to fail, little here, little there, or they're not meshing with the newer equipment that we're putting into the classrooms like our displays. So this is a memo stating that, as Josh pointed out, Jake is busy. This is one of the RFPs that's currently out there for 2,500 docking stations, which go throughout the district in both offices and classrooms. And the purpose of the dock is to connect everything at the workstation via one cord to your laptop.
Are we able to use ESSER dollars for this?
Yes, thanks for asking. All of the memos that we'll go through today are going to be funded through ESSER. Yeah, it's a good question.
Sorry.
It's one of the reasons when, working with Angie that we found out we had the ESSER funds is to kind of get ahead of where this might fall in our budget in future years.
I'm thinking about what she just said. So from a replacement cycle perspective, because you're using ESSERs, is there any acceleration? Is that what I just heard you say is we're accelerating some of the purchases so that we don't go into and lose access to those funds? Our strategy was to, fill holes in our budget. Those holes they're within the next couple of years, right? So if you had no ESSER funds available to you, would this be the same replacement cycle? If you looked at the next couple of years, you intend to replace 2,500 regardless of funding source?
We would have to, but originally in the refresh cycle that I just very recently developed, we were planning on just purchasing like a chunk that we could afford, versus one big purchase and refreshing everybody at the same time. So that's what ESSER is allowing us to do, is to just maintain that refresh cycle compared to going, okay, well, we're going to do a display refresh in this school, so let's just do the docks in this building. We can get everybody taken care of in one swoop. And then they're set on the refresh cycle now that we know they lasted about 5 years. 5 years from now, I have them on the refresh cycle to be replaced as a whole again.
And that's what I'm thinking through, right? Because the replay cycle is 25% here because it's manageable. And by like compressing this into, I have ESSER funds now, so I want to big bang it and do it all. 5 years from now, when we don't have ESSER and we have budgetary constraints, I'm wondering what that picture looks like. Are we going to be, oh my gosh, we have this big capital expense that we have to incur because of the decisions you're asking us to make today, right? So typical refresh cycles are 20–30% per year, not for one reason, but for multiple reasons, right? And I just want to make sure that we're thinking through what 5 years from now, and this is my general commentary for all of these, is it feels like we're trying to take advantage of dollars because of a reimbursement cycle and everything. What's the impact in the future for these decisions?
And one thing I'm curious on too is, will docking stations, like, we don't know 5 years from now if we will need a docking station or if there will be like a monitor that we can just bypass the docking station. Yeah.
And that's tied into my question with it as well as the technology. We're confident we don't see anything in the next 2 years that's jumping out that's saying we're going to need to replace the, I mean, as opposed to the technology, this is a pretty straightforward piece of hardware on there. When we initially got these, we bought them all at once as well. So I assume that if someone's docking station is working fine, do you replace them building wide based on other technology needs? Or if it's working fine, you're like, okay, good, we've got one left over to, you know, use at different points, I assume. Am I clear on that or no?
We would refresh whole buildings at one time. So we would go through the whole swoop.
Any other questions? Okay, we will go on to the next item, and that is hover cams.
Yeah, so all of our classrooms right now have document cameras. Some of them have what's known as an AVER, just becoming an outdated piece of equipment, and others have document or have the hover cams. Last year, beginning of this year, due to budget constraints, we started to not replace the document camera when we went in to do the display refreshes, which is when they typically would get refreshed. So we have some schools that are still operating with the AVERs, some that are operating with the hover cams. What we would like to do is purchase up to 1,000 in increments of 500, because this is kind of a thing where we're putting our best guess on how many we need based on what is in our asset management system. These go into our standard classroom setups. So we want to be responsible with funding and purchase up to 500 at a time, go back and refresh the AVERs that we passed over, and then continue forward as we refreshed classroom displays and do our AV refreshes to include the hover cam throughout the district. And then to your point about refresh, one of the things that we're questioning right now is, does every classroom need a document camera? Are they just need it at the elementary levels? Are they just need it at the secondary levels? Based off of what our new classroom workstation can do. So we're working with the directors, specifically within teaching and learning and school leadership, to start to have those conversations of what is needed, so we can get everybody at a fair playing field, and then look to the future of, do we need to have something that we can put a book under? Can we get the book digitally? Do we need to have something that we can take notes and write underneath like we would traditionally write on a worksheet underneath a document camera? Or is that something that can be done with our new laptops? And then if so, where's the training and the support behind that, so that our staff members know how to utilize potentially a different tool if that's what's deemed necessary? Questions I can answer on this one?
Alrighty, we're gonna move on to screen beams.
This is the piece of equipment that allows our staff members to cast wirelessly from their laptop up to displays. So you'll see these in classrooms and in conference room meetings rooms throughout the district. These two were purchased quite a few years ago. They're starting to fail throughout the district. So we're looking at this new model that not only refreshes our stock, but can be managed remotely. Right now, if one goes down, they're either on top of projection systems or behind TVs. We have staff members that are going up ladders, unplugging them, replugging them, resetting them, all that stuff, which they would be able to do from their laptop. So saving us time and ladder climbing, I guess. So we have an RFP out there for 2,000 of these screen beams to refresh that wireless casting throughout the district. And again, these were purchased back just a year after the move to the docking stations with the laptops and taking out the computers, the desktop computers.
Any question on screen beams? We all good? And then the purchase of certified staff laptops.
Yeah, this one, you guys approved the purchase of our staff laptops this past year. So we did one round of 1,000 last school year's budget and then one this year. We went ahead and looked how many additional laptops we purchased based on like breakage outside of warranty, stuff like that, for years 2, 3, and 4 of our last 4-year cycle. And it was right around 400. It was a little over 400, but we know that we're working to cut back on staffing, so we shouldn't need as many devices. So we're looking to upfront purchase those laptops ahead of time so that we're not purchasing in 2, 3, 4 if we have the funding available to just purchase them now, because we do have a need for a few additional right now yet this year.
Any questions? Okay, and the new fire alarm at East, is that you too? That's Josh. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No.
Okay, this is very exciting. This is the first purchase the board will be authorizing using the November of 22 referendum funds. This is the new fire alarm at East High School. East and one other small elementary school have an older system that needs updating. The big problem with the one at East is it's not what they call assignable. So, like a smoke detector is going off in some area of the building, but you don't know where exactly in that area. Same if someone pulls a fire alarm or something like that. In a large school like East, that's obviously a big problem. So the other one we have like that is weak, but given the size of that building, that's not that big of an issue, right? It's like 2 hallways. The quote came in at $725,500, I believe. And yeah, we're excited to get going on that. Any questions? I mean, I made a joke about Jake being very busy earlier, but he is really, really, really busy. Right now, I think he's got 12 RFPs going at once. And then we've got, the stuff like Amy and I had here cycling very fast through that procurement department. We may have needs, given the volume, to maybe hit a regular board meeting without hitting a work session. We may also need to occasionally ask for a special board meeting at the work session just to get some approvals going, because it's pretty hard to wait a whole month to execute these large purchases, especially since we're essentially competing with other school districts and other businesses for labor and materials.
Laura?
I just wanted to emphasize that competition aspect and also just the benefit of having a quick turnaround. Just want to reinforce that. We need, so we will need to occasionally have to have some quick meetings to talk about or vote on some of these projects. So people should just sort of mentally prepare for that.
Brian?
I have a question with the kind of the whole process on this. I'm just noticing it on the fire alarm system on here, and with the points being allocated towards local businesses on the technology part of it. I noticed that Elon Electric is partnering with Johnson Control on this. Do we look into consider partnerships with local companies? Does that rate out differently for proposals? Like, again.
Yeah, absolutely. It has in the past. I mean, it really depends on the particular project you have in mind. But I know just in experience doing technology RFPs, we've explicitly given a point bonus for how local they are. So we've done like Green Bay and then Wisconsin, United States, and that has actually made the difference in the outcome of one particular procurement. I think our last round of student Chromebooks ended up going to Camera Corner Connecting Point because they were able to, get close enough on the price that the bonus points pushed them over the edge.
And a follow up with that, and obviously, anytime we can do this with local companies, especially ones that have been part of Green Bay schools for quite some time with Camera Corner, just the history there, I think is fantastic. So
I try not to get sentimental about things like that, but there are benefits to working with local companies beyond just the fact that we like them. The service is significantly better, and you can actually contact people, see people in person, go and visit sites with your people. You really get to know them and they get to know your business, and that's worked out really well with a lot of local companies actually.
And Josh, can you describe the scope of that pre-negotiated contract? Since this is single source, is Johnson Controls our vendor that does all of our fire systems throughout the district? What's the source?
Yeah, and that's why we chose to use single source, because Johnson Controls has historically basically done every single fire alarm in the district, and we've been happy with that service. And it would have been quite complicated if we had one school that was handled by someone else, right? So we did use that single source provision, utilizing that national contract.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, Josh. And then the last operations item is item I. That's going to be the revision to the individual contract templates. And this will be Melissa and Lori.
Hello. So just as a part of HR, just looking at continuous improvement, as we discover things, obviously we're trying to improve them, and we have a lot of fresh eyes in the department. So I do need to give a shout out to Mike Freeze. I found a couple things and then he dug into it further and found a whole lot more. So it was really beneficial. So what we're trying to do is standardize some things when we find variation. And so what you have in front of you and what you received before is, I think it's like 14 or 15. But it's contracts, and then you can see through the red line, a lot of them is mostly formatting, but also some word changes and things that are already in the handbook. So they don't need to be repeated here, and just cleaning up overall of the contracts. So we did run it past the GBA attorney as well, besides Melissa, with no questions or qualms, any concerns that she had. And so, yeah, we're just trying to get it consistent and have cleaner contracts. Anything you want to add?
James?
Having no experience of this, I just want to make sure that I understand. By removing precise language in a couple sections from the contract and subordinate it to the handbook, that the control and the agreement around the handbook is that is controlled so that you can make changes to the handbook which impact all of the contracts without having to go in and change, have everyone sign new contracts in the event that we do change some of these provisions. Is that the basic purpose for calling it out and managing it over there?
And to remind everybody who's watching and at the board table, handbook changes can only be approved by the school board. So any changes that would be reflected in the handbook and then affect individual contracts must come from the school board.
And are represented employee groups in part of that conversation around the handbook, and they accept those changes as well?
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, Nancy.
So there was no updating in the administrative one then?
Well, there are the educator, the administrator, and manager contracts. There are just, oh, there should be in there. Yep, there are for sure. There's some format changes. There's some terms. The other thing we added is that there wasn't a, did you find it?
There's 4 and there would be 4 administrator red line contracts in, yep.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. We will bring all this stuff forward at our meeting on Monday to vote. And that concludes the operations portion. I think Laura Layton and Warren will be taking over for policy and governance.
Hey, thank you. Good evening. We have 3 rules actually to go over this evening. So the first one is Rule 453.41, administering medication procedures. Did you want to go over that?
Sorry, I turned you off.
Did you want to go over 1 and 3 together? Okay. The third one. Sorry. The third one is staff administration of Narcan.
Good. Okay, I was gonna ask you if you wanted to do both of them together, and then that's why I turned you off initially, so I apologize. So we are bringing forward Rule 453.41 and Rule 453.4 as well. Both of them work hand in hand into provide authority for our school staff to administer Narcan, which is the drug that is administered when someone is in overdose from various specific drugs, particularly the drugs noted here in the update and in the board rules. We worked with our nurses on this rule, as well as Chris Collar and Claudia Henriksen, and our cabinet and our executive cabinet in bringing forward these changes to the Rule 1 and then the drafting of Rule 3. The state law is pretty specific with respect to the ability to administer Narcan and the application of the Good Samaritan law. Should someone do that, that a person is not personally liable, nor is a government agency in stocking it and then administering it as well. So that information is reflected in both of those rules. Any questions?
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Rule 433, interdistrict transfer procedures.
So this rule is evident of continuous improvement. If you've seen the number of revision dates on the bottom of the rule. We continue to try and tweak this to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our families, as well as meeting the needs of the district and our schools, and adjusting dates and different windows and timelines. So last year we tried a very late interdistrict transfer window to allow for families who moved into the district late, or families that did not get in their applications on time to apply for interdistrict transfer. The problem was it was too late and it was hard to make adjustments, and families were waiting for notices too late into the summer. So we're coming with revisions based on the feedback of the families, as well as the directors and executive director who administer these interdistrict transfers, to make those changes.
Are there any questions or comments? I just wanted to comment that I think this is a good demonstration of how we learn through doing things, trying to be more inclusive and work kind of a customer focused on our community. And then we have to sometimes adjust back to best meet the needs of everybody. So thank you. That concludes the policy and governance section.
Oops, sorry, Laura. Thank you. Okay, so we're almost done, folks. We're gonna go on to number 7, agenda setting, and under that item, we're going to have Andrew requested that we have a discussion about board meeting start times. So why don't you tee that up, Andrew?
I guess given the time, it was my request, I'm willing to just postpone. I mean, my point is, I think public friendliness is the most important, whether we see people coming a lot from the public or not, because we don't know if that's chicken or egg. I think second most important, honestly, is the ability of board members, many of which, and could be all of which, depending on elections, have to work around other full-time employment. And then I think, and I'm sincere when I say this, I know staff is very busy. I also believe firmly that staff should be able to, adjust work schedules if there's going to be a board meeting. I think things have crept too early, especially where you can have the situation of, closed session. I guess I'd encourage people to think about it, but I'd be okay with having the discussion in January or having some correspondence. And then I think it can't, we're getting 5 o'clock is not public friendly. I don't think, but I don't think that'll be resolved tonight either. So I'm willing to postpone.
Well, I mean, we've started the conversation. It's on our agenda for tonight, so I think maybe we should proceed and have the conversation. I feel strongly that our staff, that their schedules are not that flexible, frankly. Like some of the people that are sitting with us tonight are going to have to be up at meetings tomorrow at bright and early at 7 o'clock, maybe even earlier for all I know. So considering that, I think is important. The public now has multiple ways to connect to the board as far as our meetings, and use them as far as I can tell. They watch us online live. They go and watch our meetings at other times. They can do public, or they can have participate in the public forum if remotely. We still have that option as well, or they can come in person. I think we've covered the bases there pretty well. So having a 5 o'clock start to our meeting, again, just speaking for myself here, that
and which nods to the demands of our staff that are required to be at these meetings and often at our work sessions do, as we saw tonight, large scale presentations that take, months to prepare at times. I don't have a problem giving, having that a little bit earlier start. So those are my thoughts. You guys might have different ideas.
I'll wait. I mean, we've talked about this before, and I believe the compromise was the regular board meetings would be at 6 o'clock. The work sessions would be at 5 o'clock because they take longer. And we're 3+ hours into our work session. As somebody who works at 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock at night is real late. So I'm in favor of the 5 o'clocks, especially, I mean, I'd be fine starting the board meetings at the regular board meetings at 5. I like having these board work sessions at 5 o'clock because it just gives us more time. 9 o'clock is late. We lost our intercity student council representatives at 7:30 tonight. And when we have students that are sitting at the table, I appreciate the earlier times. I wouldn't have been super comfortable having my girls leave the DOB at 9 o'clock at night.
Are there any other comments, any other thoughts? Go ahead, Andrew.
I guess I would like there, I'd at least like some consideration, to not pushing before 5, especially for for likely short special meetings, especially if we want to have, people don't, if 5 o'clock is a difficult time for people, it doesn't matter much if they can, there might be some small group of people for whom 5 o'clock, they can reach us and participate virtually, but not in person. But honestly, I think they're just it used to be always 7, and then it was 6 and 7. Then I think it was 6 and 6, and now it's 5 and 6. So I guess I'm certainly opposed to earlier than 5, and I'd like to see specials. I built a large part of my work and life schedule around Mondays, so other Mondays could be used for closed. So I guess I'll just stop here. I'm probably outvoted, but I do not think we're public friendly anymore for participation face to face with the board. And I think over the past years, there's people who have maybe not necessarily anyone who's here now, but I think there's maybe people who had no qualms about nudging changes that would make there be less of it. No one who's at this table now, but I think that it happened. So.
Okay, but are there any other comments, any other concerns? So just so that we come out of this particular discussion with some kind of understanding, I just want to, can we just kind of agree that we're going to keep things the way they are for now? Go ahead, James.
So I recognize that this is a topic on the work sessions and the regular board meetings. To Andrew's point, when we have closed or specials, polling to 4 o'clock, I recognize that this is not a public issue potentially, right? But that's when it does start kind of encroaching on the workday and becomes difficult for multiple people. I don't know if we have to take a particular action on this or if we can agree as a group, but if we can agree that 4 starts getting early, and as we have to do these specials and close, if we have the latitude on a case by case basis to schedule all activity starting at 5 and going forward and run the evening that way, I would at least appreciate that kind of scheduling habit.
Go ahead.
I think also as it comes up with some of these relatively quick meetings that we're looking at is especially talking about the procurement items and stuff like that that are pretty straightforward, utilizing the fact that we do have Zoom meetings that will save us all some time on it if it's straightforward, and the conference call part of it too. And would you feel comfortable with those being a little bit before the 5 o'clock if it's something that we know it's going to be a 5-10 minute thing, or we anticipate it as a Zoom call, so the staff that have to be on there? Or is that, I mean, I guess we run into the same issue at 5 o'clock, then, it's still a quick meeting staff time wise, but.
We've sometimes been able to dispense of these short meetings over a lunchtime. When there's just a quick vote that needs to happen, but it has to happen, and it has to happen as Josh was saying, in a timely way. So that to me is a pretty good option. That can be very effective. So just make a note of that, Kinsey. Well, we're going to try to be as flexible as possible, but we should all be prepared for a lot of work to take place over the next few months. And we'll just have to be as flexible and understanding and patient with each other as we can. That's kind of where I'd like to leave that tonight, if that's okay with everybody. Anybody else? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We are adjourned. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. We're adjourned.
You have been watching the Green Bay Area Public School District's Board of Education meeting. Please visit the school district's website, www.gbaps.org, to view the program again. If you cannot fully access the information on this video, please let us know the accessibility issue you are having by calling 920-448-2025 or by email at communications@gbaps.org. We will try to provide the information to you in an alternative format and/or make the necessary improvements to make the information accessible.